you?
What's up, potheads and political junkies? Now you can hear me.
Can you hear him?
It is another Friday here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. And look who is actually back with me for the first time in so long. He's hiding his face. John Burfello.
Well, you know what? We tried. A few times we missed each other. A couple times I hung out. We were going to do a show without you there, you know. And, well, what happened is summertime.
We got a little back.
We got some background noise, which is awesome.
Here we go.
You find it?
Yeah, I got it.
Hiding my face.
There you are.
But long story short, it's been quite an amazing last few months, as you know, what's happening just all around the world with cannabis, but of course, what's been happening here in Canada. And, you know, all the fun stuff going on, all these events that are happening.
You've been a busy man.
High Times Canada Cannabis Cup happening next week. Was Legends Valley Music Festival. It got changed from the Bio Cup to the High Time Cup.
Coming right here to Vancouver, not here. So for our friends out there who don't know the difference between Vancouver and Vancouver Island, the city of Vancouver is not in or on Vancouver Island. They are two separate places. So just off the coast of where Vancouver is, if you take a 2-hour ferry, you get to a place called Vancouver Island. That's where I was born and raised. And that's where the High Times Cannabis Cup will be coming to Canada for the first time.
And it's going to be pretty awesome.
It's going to be huge. We're all going. Everybody from Pod TV is going to be there. We're going to be broadcasting live from the event. My man Johnny here is a celebrity judge, as well as Carly Pants, who's in the hot seat over there.
As she's dabbing away.
She's dabbing.
I should be doing
also a celebrity judge. Hi, Carly. Wave to the Pot TVers. I guess you can't. Oh, there's your
Well,
wave.
there's the celebrity judge. We have a nice, and how we're doing the same thing as we did last year. We're going to all congregate on the Friday, Saturday, and the Sunday between 11 and 1 p.m. We'll probably choose the Remo's Vapor Lounge tent.
Yes.
But that is undecided, and we're all sitting down as a collective, 12 to 15 judges, and we're going to judge the first time ever High Times Cannabis Cup Canada.
It's going to be very cool.
And
so the Bio Cup is now the High Times Cannabis Cup.
Bio Cup is the Bio Cup.
But
we now have a High Times Cannabis Cup that is replacing the Bio Cup.
Right.
Santiago was going on in Spain, a few different things, so they changed, and we now have the High Time Cannabis Cup Canada, which is pretty damn awesome.
It's very cool. And if you watched the show a couple weeks ago, we had Macho Camel on the show, spokesperson
last week. You called me out.
No, that was 2 weeks ago.
Was it last week?
No, 2 weeks. That's how long you've been gone for, Johnny.
I'm having some
That's how many days you've been gone for. Last week, I think, on the show, it was, what did we do last week? It was Cory Booker on the show, or he wasn't on the show, but we did a show about the Senator Cory Booker. But, so we'll be at the High Times thing. Now, I've just been asked to host the awards ceremony at the High Times Cannabis Cup.
So Jared's hosting the awards ceremony. And I'm handing out the first place trophies.
Yeah, Johnny's going to be up there. Well, it should be fun. I heard Danny Danko from High Times will be there in the house.
He will be in the house.
I'm hoping he's going to try. And so, yeah, it should be cool.
We got a few pretty amazing. We've got some new acts that just got released. People were just going crazy with the new acts. I don't even know the names. I apologize. Please go to High Times Cannabis Cup.
Oh, they just released some more
last
music.
night.
Oh,
last night, and people went crazy. Who?
I'll bring them up.
Yeah, maybe Carly.
We're bringing them up. But you know what? We got some pretty, and there's going to be some more heavy hitters. It's not even our main act hasn't even been released yet. High Times like to hold that back. We've moved the Vendors Village because they're anticipating so many people. How about that?
There you go.
Because the act they're going to be releasing is going to draw thousands of people from all over.
Oh, so they have another big act that they have.
They have a main headliner now. There's a big main headliner. You guys wait for it because it's going to be exciting. And then, hey, get those tickets now. You have to go to cannabiscup.com and you get your tickets to get into the event. They have VIP passes for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You have weekend passes. You got tent passes. Get your judges kit. It's the only way you can get a Medtainer High Time Cannabis Cup Canada Medtainer is you have to be a judge. So that's not up to me, guys. They're free, but there'll be that's.
I'm excited.
Political.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be amazing.
So we'll talk a little bit more on the show about the High Times Cannabis Cup and the Legends Valley Festival. But I wanted to talk about what we're going to get into right away on the show here. And we have a guest, Alan Park. Alan Park is a stand-up comedian from right here in Canada. Our viewers might know him from Royal Canadian Air Farce or his Sirius XM show Conspiracy Queries. He has a new podcast that is hitting the internets, or has already hit the internets, and you can find that. We're going to get into the details of that with him. It's called Green Crush, and it's about his
I got a
fight.
1 minute warning here.
1 minute warning to 4:20. It's going to be. Oh, I think you're a little jumping the gun, aren't you? What time is it? Oh no, you're right.
That's wrong. 1 minute
studio-
warning. I know. I just had to
Damn.
throw it out there. I even said that it
studio
will
clock
happen.
is wrong
It's
here.
embedded into me. The Google
I
is
know.
wrong.
I got the big bong here too.
Big bong going.
But
I got
we need
that.
weed for
Carly's
that.
gonna heat up my
So,
thing
but
here. We're gonna get
I'm going to
down.
bring Alan. Alan is joining us.
Happy
by
420.
Skype. Oh, and happy 420, Alan. We got you here. Are you there?
Happy 420, Alan.
Happy 420. I'm gonna have to say this is my second 420 of the day because it's 720 right here.
He's in Toronto.
He's in Toronto.
Yeah, 720. Well, that's just as good, you know. Yeah, we tend to have them every hour usually. So, Alan, it's good to have you on the show, man.
Thanks for having me on the show and just facilitating my inhalation at this point.
Very important. And I didn't get to one of the main points about your story here, and maybe I should just let you tell the whole thing. But you used cannabis to fight the cancer you had, which was some brutal stuff. And I'm going to let you get into all the details of it, but this is something that our viewers have known about for a long time, people using cannabis for cancer. And there's been a lot of research that's been going on for years about it. But still, we need so much more research because the doctors haven't come along as far as they need to. So this is some of the stuff I wanted to get into with you here.
That's for sure. Well, we need more than research. We need, once the research is done, like a lot of the great research in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the aughts, and currently, it needs to be available once it's been compiled rather than just saying we need more research. There's a lot of research out there. For example, I was diagnosed in 2013, the end of 2013, and we can get into that however you want to direct it. But the doctor at the time explained to me that there was no option and there was nothing that I could do. He said that I was so advanced, so greatly advanced, and believe me, I believed him about this. My bones were metastasized. It was basically a diagnosis of advanced, aggressive, stage 4 prostate cancer that had already metastasized and gone into a lot of my bones. And,
Wow.
Yeah, the CAT scan was 100% terrible to look at. So then, that's in 2013, and then I got busy with how I found out about this particular substance as a medical aid and not just a pleasurable ride. But I've unearthed a document from cancerresearch.uk, and I tout it regularly on my show because it's really important, is that in prostate cancer, my particular cancer, they'd already had positive results and said that the UK Cancer Research.uk from 2009 is telling me that there is a cure, it can be effective, it is effective, not that it can be effective or may have been found to in some cases be, but that it says it is effective, and so I'd like to know what my fantastic, amazing doctor didn't know about this paper that was already 4 years old by the time I walked through the doors.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is there, like you say, there actually is a ton of research that's there, but for some reason the doctors aren't coming along and
It's pharma.
Yeah, they're not getting it. They're not making it. There should be groups of doctors who are focused on this.
We do have
specifically.
doctors doing that.
Yeah, but we have. Yeah.
We're starting to see things change, and that's the biggest part. I mean, cancer is one of the most widely known diseases out there that people are fighting. It's the one that we have. We have all our cancer foundations, and we see it. I have a good friend of mine, my neighbor Mike Martin, who was another person who has neophytosis, and he has tumors that grow on his glands, and at the same time he also has cancer. Couple years of hitting him with cannabinoids, and that was on a molecular level diagnosed cancer-free, just like yourself. Which is, they say he hasn't beat cancer, but it's undetected, which is the most important part. They have a little better quality of life and not have to have that.
Alan, let's get into that story. So, I mean, you had this, you were going to the doctor. They were basically telling you that there was nothing you could do at this point, right? Like they were telling you it was the end of the road.
Yeah, that was after the entire year had slipped by, and I was gradually deteriorating from January on down. It got worse and worse. And quick story, I was just in the gym in pretty good shape exercising. I was doing a warm-up weight on a particular move when I popped a rib, which I thought, I didn't warm up properly or whatever. And I had to wait 5 or 6 weeks for it to heal. because that's how long it takes, and then you can't exercise at the gym or even do leg weights or any kind of thing. You have to wait. So, but 4, 5, 6 weeks into the healing supposed process, there wasn't any. It was worse, and it was more spread around my body at that point, where these pains in my rib cage, not just where I broke it, I popped it in the gym, but it was just achy and painful all the way. So when that didn't heal, and 5 or 6 weeks later after that, and so about 3 months into it now, I'm gobbling up all kinds of over-the-counter meds to eliminate some of the pain. And by the end of the year, I was diagnosed in November 2013 with what was going to be my final birthday at that time. So I think I might have missed your question. Basically, yeah, and the whole part of the year going by was where a lot of the trauma led, because at that point I didn't really know what was going on.
What's going on? Yeah.
I went to the doctor. I went to the doctor several times, then a specialist 2 or 3 times. I was running blood and urine tests with them, and they weren't finding anything while I could feel myself deteriorate. So.
What were you doing at that point? Were you taking anything for it? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, they did the same thing to my friend Mike, is they saw doctors and they kind of let him sit in limbo, and that's when he started really using cannabinoids for his second alternative before.
Yeah, I didn't use it. I didn't even think about it. It wasn't even in my mind all summer. But eventually, I started to. I'd heard about it because this seems like a million years ago. When we're talking 2013, as far as awareness of cannabis as any kind of positive thing. Because remember, this is like 2 years before Harper's gone, and it was a different place, a different time. It feels like a million years ago because when I found out about the cannabis, I found out about it in August from my ex-wife, that she had heard of this stuff, the cannabis oil, and that you could cook it up and make it hard, and basically. I tried a little bit of that, but it didn't seem to do anything because I only had a small, tiny piece of it, and it was kind of hard. I don't think it was the right 100% thing, but it made me think, well, there might be something to this medicine. And when I was waiting to get diagnosed, in agony in Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, the emergency room, I was in just an incredible, immeasurable amount of pain, and it was silly. You kind of break out of that, and it's like you're high, but in a painful high, just from the agony. And during that time, I kind of thought, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. And I was starting to think about chemotherapy, and I don't want to do that, and maybe I have cancer, and this has to be terrible. Whatever it is going to be terrible. And so I said, I was kind of bouncing around between, if they tell me I need to do chemo, am I going to do the chemo because I got cancer? Or am I going to stick to my guns because I previously made fun of chemotherapy as an ineffective thing and ridiculed it, and I was paid by the CBC to do it. And so I thought, am I going to do that or am I going to buckle? And I got the notion, just, you need to get involved with medical cannabis. That's all that came in. It was like a TV signal coming into my brain. I was like, but I don't smoke dope anymore. That's okay. You need to get into medical cannabis. It's like I can hear this conversation going back. Or maybe that's just the agony. You can characterize it however you like. But I'm glad I thought of that, or I was open to think about it, because I was diagnosed on Wednesday, in the evening of Wednesday, November 20th, and I had sourced some cannabis at this point 3 days later on Saturday, and I made some oil on Sunday. And then I took the oil, and by the third day of taking the oil, it was the Thursday now, the following week, I didn't have to take my morphine tabs. It was hydromorphone I was on, which is a bit of a cleaner ride than regular morphine. And I just didn't need to take it. I didn't need to take it, and I thought that was incredible because I'd been taking these other over-the-counter deals all year. And then after literally three pinheads, literally the size of 3 pinheads of cannabis oil, I don't have to take any kind of pain reliever, which was amazing. And then another 4 weeks went by, and by the time that happened, so I'm 5 weeks deep from the diagnosis, and then the expert doctor told me, the prostate cancer top surgeon of Ontario or Canada definitely Toronto, told me that my PSA level, prostate-specific antigen, was pretty much half of what it was when I came in. So when I came in and got diagnosed, it was 700. It's really not any kind of good if it's over 3 or 4. Mine was 700. 5 weeks later from doing the cannabis, it's only 374, which is still, that's an end of the world number for somebody. But when it's going in the other direction, and when it's almost half of 700, it was workable. I'd already started to feel pain relief. I'd been regaining mobility, and it was pretty exciting to feel just better. It'd been a long time since I could say I feel better. So had I not gone on the cannabis for those 5 weeks, I'm further deteriorating between the diagnosis and when the expert can give me his advice. So it was a nice 5 weeks to have it. So if I had to end this interview right now because there's a power shortage here, or something wrong with my internet provider, or BC slides off into the drink from an earthquake, I would say if I had to end this interview now, I would say, if you're diagnosed with any of these horrible diseases, particularly prostate cancer, any cancer, all kinds of diseases and illnesses, as soon as you're diagnosed, get on this oil. That is what I would say to someone were they to ask me. Notice how I'm not propagating it and telling someone to do it directly. I'm saying if that were me again, I would immediately get on this oil right away, because even if it's a terrible diagnosis and your doctor says, we have to do this, that, or the other thing, and those are your 3 options, all of which I was denied, I would say that the 5 weeks of that oil is what put me in good stead, and I would have been tipping the other way. It would have been 5 further weeks of deterioration at the accelerated rate that my doctor at that time was very surprised to see me not in horrible shape, to the point where he couldn't believe the numbers. He was like, there must have been a mistake on this second one. We might have to do it again. There's no way you can be 374 if you were 700 5 weeks ago. You should be at least 700 or 710 or 750 or 1400. It starts to double.
So they just couldn't really believe it.
Couldn't believe it. But whereas I understood he couldn't believe it, but I was feeling better. I knew that. I was able to walk. I was able to bend at my knees and pick things up off the floor again. Without a great deal of difficulty, and I knew I was onto a good thing. I mean, when you're not taking morphine and you're stage 4 metastasized, something positive is going on.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and I mean, you can't really argue with that. The numbers dropping like that. I mean, it's just.
Oh, sure you can. People do it all the time. Unfortunately, unfortunately, they're wrong, and it gives me a chuckle on the one hand, and it makes me a little sad on the other, because if anybody is vehemently arguing against it, and then it comes to them that they've got problems, that's a bit of a dark place to be standing, in your own word, but afraid that you're not accessing a medicine that's viable. This has happened a couple of times with some folks who were telling me it was all nonsense, and then unfortunately for them, then they would send a private message. I've gotten this twice now from people saying, hey, I know I've been giving you a hard time, but does that shit really work? Because my uncle, blah, 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 or my wife, blah, 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 right? And, when there's only one option, you want to take it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the thing is, the anecdotal evidence is piling up. There's just so much of it. And once you get to a point where there's that much anecdotal evidence, I mean, it's not empirical, but it becomes something. It's evidence that's worth something. So the fact that it's just so heavily being, we are seeing some doctors and professionals in, like Sanjay Gupta, for instance, on CNN. There are a few. Yeah, but it just
seems great, but I love the part at the beginning where he says, I was a shill for bringing this whole thing down and shouting out against it, and I'd like to apologize for that. And hey, how about this fantastic documentary? Go to YouTube and dial up Weed or Weeds? I think it's just Weeds. Sanjay.
Yeah, I think it was Weeds. Yeah.
2-parter. The first part's kind of better, but they're both worth watching for sure.
Yeah, and I think they were talking about its use for kids who have epilepsy as well. Yeah. Which is really remarkable. the evidence they see right away when they give these kids this stuff, you know?
I don't know what Sanjay's doing now, but at the time and in and around that time he was involved with this, he was also a candidate for the Surgeon General of the United States. And there's a great appointment that we missed out on.
No
I know
kidding.
people are getting kind of upset about a lot of appointments now. Like, what do we do about the environment? Put a guy from Big Oil in there, you know.
Yeah.
What do we do? And he's been flipping it around, but I really would have liked to have seen, and on the heels of his 2 documentaries about cannabis, the new Surgeon General is Sanjay Gupta.
Yeah.
That's a big missed opportunity there.
I think Obama was secretly trying to give a nod to everyone because at the time, I think he, it was Sanjay Gupta, his vote for the Surgeon General, but he also put Kumar or Harold in there. Kumar, one of them. Who was it? I can't even remember now. It was Cal Post is his name, or what? Who's the
Cal
actor?
Post.
Yeah, the comedian. Isn't he in the White House too? He's actually on a commission, or he was part. They made him part of the White House in there. So I can't remember.
Who's part of the White House?
The guy from Harold and Kumar.
Oh. Okay.
One of the main actors from Harold and Kumar, Obama made him one of his government officials. That's
I
for
did
real.
not know that.
What's his name?
Cal
Penn is his name. Cal Penn.
Yeah.
And he resigned today. Cal Penn resigned today
Cal Penn,
because of Trump being such a prick.
All right.
Bites the dust.
Well,
Yeah.
this Jeff Sessions guy, this guy's like a little hobbit, you know, trotting around. It's like a little golem saying, you know, don't smoke this stuff. You know, he's been shut down by his own panel. They've recommended against proceeding with any kind of retro punitive. What would they be doing? They try to acquire all this stuff, but he's bad news. Hopefully,
These guys are nasty, man.
Yeah.
No. These guys want it to be. You see Trump basically congratulating the president of the Philippines, who has an all-out war on drugs, marijuana users, where it's like a vigilante war where they're murdering them in the streets, and Trump is calling this guy up and saying he's a cool guy.
Yeah, they're murdering suspects.
Yeah.
You're not even found. I don't even know if they're charging them. They're just.
No,
it's all
it's
extrajudicial.
extrajudicial, yeah.
So it's crazy because it literally has gotten to the point where there's just like a cardboard sign that's like, I push drugs, and somebody found murdered in the streets. And there's been a lot of people who have sworn that their family member had nothing to do with it, that they've been clean for X amount of time. So people, it's literally the best analogy for it is really a witch hunt, because there are definitely innocent people being caught in this
political
as well.
too. It's Duterte trying to get to his political enemies and find any excuse to eradicate him, right? So
Yeah. Well, I'm not exactly sure what's going on down there. I mean, what I've noticed with politics and geopolitics over the years, and I talk about that a lot on my show, conspiracyqueries.com. I've got 96 or so episodes up there. Check it out. I might do more, but it's tough. It's tough to think about it all. But there are so many events going on in the past, let's say, 15, 20 months, leading up to where we are today, that in days gone by, any one of those things would have been a big deal for weeks. Now we're getting 12 and 15 of those things a day. Everything's speeding up, including the intensity and the frequency and the weirdness of these scandals. So
it is.
Changing the laws like that to the point where you're going to be able to put someone in jail because some other guy says, or it's not even true, and then having the leader of the free world think that's a good idea. It's not a good idea. And you got to look out. This is the biggest thing that I could even say in the way of political strategy. I mean, we're sitting here trying to change laws. A lot of the states have been turning it over. The judiciary and the police, definitely, and the Association of the Police Chiefs, I'm sure they have the same thing in the States. It's a club just for chiefs, and they kind of dictate policy within the police, and they talk with the government. And the government itself, these three bodies, these groups of people, these are the ones setting policy all the time. And we're always the ones reacting to it and saying, oh, no, that's not good because, etc., or this isn't right because, etc. And really, the more that I've been partaking of this gateway drug, that they like to call it a gateway drug, to other drugs, but in fact it's a gateway drug to contemplation, research, and interest of the overall facts in my case. That's what it's done for me. I don't know that's going to happen to everyone else. But it's a gateway to the hypothalamus, it's a gateway to the pituitary, it's a gateway to the pineal gland, which are in your brain. You think the government would be interested in that, in propagating the use of it, because they act like they want to help you and be your nanny at other times. If you need to get a flu shot, we're probably going to give that to you. You know, we care about you. We don't want you to get sick. But for some reason, they let the brain get neglected. And so from there, with their policy decisions that you're talking about, with Duterte and all of these other harsh things, those are allegedly the functions of a non-drug intaking brain. So what you're saying over there in the Philippines, and what you make, those are the plants. So how about this thing in Canada? Let me get wound up on this a little bit. We were selling military hardware from different companies in London, Ontario, and Newmarket, Ontario, and perhaps others. And they were selling military hardware to Saudi Arabia, who cut off more fucking heads than ISIS and Daesh and the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and whatever the next name is they're going to put on it to scare us. Because once you get used to one name, it's kind of boring. That's why I keep rolling it over. But at some point, all of this has to stop. And we just have to say, hey, we're going to set the policy. So when I got sick, how I set the policy for me was, I looked at the rules and regulations of medical cannabis and what it takes to be a legitimate, according to the government, medical cannabis user. I didn't like a lot of the regulations and the say-sos in there. And then I didn't like the amount of time I'd been hearing it takes to process the papers from various people. I didn't have 4 or 5, 6 months to fuck around waiting for some papers to get permission from someone sitting behind a desk, or to letting them know that I was going to do this. There's no chance for that. You're just letting the ship fill up with water and giving yourself less of an opportunity to get out of it. And then I realized, if this doesn't work and they bust me and I'm dead, who cares? And if it does work, the waiting was going to be the thing that killed me. I didn't have any time at all on my hand. Right. So I'm going to circle all the way back down and say, these people are making these policy decisions allegedly free and clear of any narcotic influence, free and clear of any of these psychoses that they claim it's people like us that have. And so, okay, those are the policies of a diseased mind. I mean, did you see the movie Spotlight? None of those people are on pot or anything, but those were the workings of a decent mind, an untouched mind, if you will. And so the further you look at all these disasters and all these egregious affronts in history against the freedom of the man, the freedom of the spirit, it's all involving no chemical substance whatsoever. And they're telling us we're doing a terrible thing when I pull myself off the slab instead of dying.
Yeah, no, it's.
So if you want to go, what about the children? I think my kids are pretty good with the fact that I saved myself with this. So what about the children is my answer to them with that. And what about the children right now that are enjoying spasm-free, seizure-free, long episodes of time when no other expensive, painful, uncomfortable pharmaceutical was bringing them that relief? I'm all done hearing about their setting policy and we're responding to it. I'm thinking locally and acting globally, but I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And whatever I'm going to do is okay with me because I'm still here.
Yeah, well, it's the right thing to do when it's saving lives. I mean,
right.
It's ridiculous. And that's the proof is that's all you really need. Like, these guys, government trying to step in to stop people from taking their medicine. I can't think of anything worse than that. I mean, you're targeting people who are sick and dying. It's unbelievable. They do this though. This is how fascism works. They target the weak areas of society, anything they can get their hands on. And we were just talking about sessions and all, and you were saying how many, weird, crazy things are happening nearly every day right now. It's the shock treatment we're getting. They're shocking us. Naomi Klein, an author, a Canadian author, has written some cool stuff about this, the shock doctrine. But she was just saw her on Democracy Now! Not too long ago, talking about how they take this, they use this to their advantage, that they're basically scaring the shit out of everybody and traumatizing them, and that's how you can control their brains.
Can I stop?
Trauma-based mind control.
can I stop you right there and give you my theory on that based on my research, and chuck it out the window if you don't think so?
No, please do.
So many of these events, all of these events, are manipulated through fear. I mean, good God! Just a couple of weeks ago, we're almost at war with a foreign country using nuclear weapons, and a couple of days later, they're tearing down statues after a riot of Nazis have been sweeping through the center of the United States. That's a lot to take in just on its own.
Yeah.
So there's fear all over the place. Okay, there's fear everywhere in their policy and in how they manipulate the mind. Now, this is the interesting thing about the brain. Fear, you can do your homework on it, you can do the science on it. The fear is very much intimately connected with the functionality of the amygdala, specifically a part of the brain, the amygdala. And if you take cannabis properly, what they used to call as a slur being lazy or unmotivated is actually the initial reaction to a dramatic lowering of the trauma response in your brain. So it makes sense to me greatly that the people that have been constantly propagating fear and in ever increasing intervals through the last 40, 50 years, and I can speak to that because I'm 54, almost 55, they use fear all the time. They can't not know that it's affecting the amygdala, and at the same time, they do so know that a regular, steady diet in your natural, inherent, endogenous endocannabinoid system in your body, the receptors, which actually are flexible enough to find the cannabis anywhere and pull it in, diminishes the effect of going through trauma. And so, if you're not scared of things, you're less likely to be manipulated, and I think this is one of the largest reasons why cannabis has been illegal for a long time. Not, what about the children? That is such a bullshit. What about the children with circular saws? What about the children with? What about the kid with a pencil who's not using it properly?
What about the children that are born with endocannabinoid deficient, so they actually already have diseases that are present and they're not able to actually properly administrate the cannabinoids they truly need because they're unable to feed with breast milk or stuff like that. So we see these. I say they're endocannabinoid deficient, and with a lot of these conditions that we see that further along in life. So it's not what about the children? It's called getting them the cannabinoids so they have a preventative medicine for their life.
Well,
absolutely, but that's
Alan,
the root.
To your point, what about football? Like, we've seen the latest thing about football and the damage it does to people's brains. Like, give me a break. If something's hurting the kids, it's not the weed.
Really? I play a lot of football.
Let them play football. But the good news is, if they do, now there's tons of evidence that cannabis can really do a lot of help for CTE people. And I believe now the NFL, as an organization, is looking into allowing it, if we can get some science to them to show that it works. So I'm kind of on the fence there. Because, I'd like to see a person with CTE reverse themselves, but I don't really care about football. But if you could use them to turn it around, it's really going to change things up. But, right now it's a punishable offense. In fact, you can get in more trouble for smoking a joint and getting caught at it as a running back than riding in an elevator and smashing your wife in the face and dropping her to the floor. Somehow it's worse to medicate yourself and to eliminate your brain trauma than it is to cause assault. So that organization that organization itself has CTE, just the NFL proper. This stuff.
Well, I mean, the hypocrisy, and just as a larger point, if we're talking about institutions that cause violence against people, or in general, or whether it's out of something like sports, or whether it's vehicles being on the road, or all these different things. I mean, living in society hurts. It will kill you. There's all these things. There's many, many things that will kill you in society. The idea that we're going to limit things by their danger, that's not really how it works anyway. So.
Well, I can tell you how many cell phones killed somebody on the road the other day out in Abbotsford. We saw some major accidents purely because people are on their phones. So,
cell phones, exactly.
Number one killer on the road right now.
Even before the phones, though. Let's keep the phones and the cars separate because we're not supposed to be doing that, and you shouldn't be doing that. But we are sanctioning the driving around in cars. It's been going on, since cars were invented. Okay, so if you ran the numbers and I'm not really a numbers guy. I'm more of a logic person. I'm not good at math. But if you ran the numbers in a similar sort of spreadsheet, computer research fashion, maybe some cool guy out there right now on a computer can figure this out. But if you ran the same specs, that the impact of the arrival of the automobile for civilian use until now has killed and or irreparably injured and or moderately injured. That's a lot of numbers right there. How many people? What about those kids? But we sanction it, right? And then they put a seat in there, and then they put a seat belt on there. But you get T-boned by a semi. I don't care what kind of car seat you're in. So we allow that to happen, and look at all the sugar that gets put into these things that they eat. Almost every processed food has sugar in it, a subsidized commodity, very similar in structure to cocaine. And it's promoted like crazy for kids in their cereals and on the way to school, and there's machines in the school that sell these same things, these candies. So I could go on all day, and so could anybody. But when you take all of that and you say, so where is this higher ground about shutting down access to a substance that actually helps and aids your brain? Well, it's in the costs. Oh my goodness. We're going to have problems with kids and getting high, and it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be so expensive to police it. Well, then don't make up a bunch of new bullshit police rules that you don't need to police it with. But even if they do, right, even if they do, just take 10 years, take 5 or 10 years down the road of a population that's had access to the medical remedy and the medical turnaround that you can experience with this stuff. I mean, since I've been sick and recovered, as of 2015, I haven't even had a flu. So since I've been out of the jam, since I would call May, June 2015, the time I was out of my second bout. It's tough to shake. But it is so incredible to me to even ponder what would be the lowered cost of the healthcare system, which is a huge, it's out of control. And so on the one side, maybe you do have to pay for more policing to make sure, a 3-year-old kid isn't driving around in a Ford F-150. I get it. Go look out for that kind of thing. I realize all that stuff's going to happen. But, this is incredible to me that they don't just sit there and focus on that. And that's because, once again, these are the people making the policy decisions. They don't tally. What's it going to be like when so many people on these numbers don't get cancer or reverse cancer without the incredible tens of thousands of dollars that chemotherapy costs? What's it going to be like 10 years of a society that's been using a thing that can flatten so many medical problems? Well, you'll pick up your extra dough there. You can give it to the cops there. And I tell people this, if they don't like that, they can shove it up their ass. Because that's what I did. I put it in some coconut butter. I froze it in the freezer and pop it up my butt, and the prostate's right there, and it's really effective. So hopefully the next time Justin Trudeau and Bill Blair, a former cop who says he doesn't partake of cannabis, and he's legislating it, like a Somali working at a liquor store that doesn't drink. These guys then booked a tour from the Justice government, the justice.gov.ca or .gov or whatever it is, announcing they were going to cross Canada, telling people what cannabis is like and what they're going to do, and getting feedback. And then they didn't even list where they were going to be going. They were just showing up to a press release kind of thing, and some on and off duty policemen were there, and some reporters, and then they just trotted across the country. Justin Trudeau doesn't want to talk to me. I get it. I already talked to him once a few years ago in a more conciliatory kind of way. We were on a television show together on CBC, and we had a little chat when the other leader was in. I told him he was going to be the leader, and he just smiled and nodded, but we all knew Ignatieff wasn't going to be the guy. So now he's in there, and I'd like to have another chat with him, just 10 or 15 minutes, because I'm really tired of his bogus agenda. And I mean, I don't want to say he's lying, but he's lying.
Yeah, it's disingenuous. And it's all you need to do is really compare what he said while he was running for his campaign for election with what he's saying afterwards as well. I mean, some of it matches up, but a lot of it, he was defending dispensaries and the same ones he's trying to close now.
Right.
So,
Good point.
there's
So
a change of
dispensaries.
policy.
You know what happened in Toronto last summer was the police chief here, Mark Saunders. He was set to the task of apologizing to the city and presumably the country and everybody, apologizing for for a previous police chief's series of mistakes, and that is that about 37 years before that, back when Mark Saunders was probably sitting on the floor playing with his little dinky toys and his little Hot Wheels, that police chief, now just tell me how this makes any kind of sense at all. The old police chief of Toronto was involved in raiding gay bathhouses, a place where gay guys were hanging out back in the late 70s, early 80s, and they arrested all these guys. They did a midnight raid or something, arrested consenting guys. You know, you're married or not, I don't care. It's none of my business. I wasn't there. I was a little kid. It doesn't matter. But these guys were doing something which is called homosexual sex in these specific the clubs, whatever, steam baths kind of thing. And so there you had like 200 people arrested, something like this. So there's 200 lives fucked. There's 200 families probably messed with. A bunch of people went to jail. All the same things that are happening now with the dispensaries. And so 37 years later, this cop says, hey, sorry about what that last guy did. Gee whiz, that was awful of us. And moving on. And he's not really responsible for it because he wasn't around as a police chief. Well, are we going to have to wait 37 more years down the road for some other guy that's a 5-year-old right now playing outside in a sprinkler to be the police chief to say, hey, sorry about all those raids we did 37 years ago on these places that were providing a medicine for people to reverse their cancer and their metastases and to live normal lives without the use of these other medical situations or without riding the pine box 6 feet under. How about that? I'm so sorry about that. And the new prime minister will, as he does now, march in the gay pride parades with a light pink shirt. Perhaps he'll be walking in a cannabis pride parade with a light green shirt like I've got on now.
No kidding.
It's
But,
identical to me.
And your point, I think, is well taken, especially right now. For me, I've been going through these weird changes in my mind about what I really truly believe. My worldview has been changing, if you will, because of President Trump. I thought that we were progressing. I thought things were moving along, and I thought that, over time, these things tend to get better. So I was of the thought that, hey, once cannabis is legalized, it'll be legal, and we'll move on like we did with things, like with alcohol prohibition or with racism. But as we can see, even with racism, something that I thought was so far done, we see it brought back by these fascists, these guys in power who want to tap the fear button. So even when we legalize cannabis, who knows when it's going to, who's the next Trump going to be that wants to swing it back the other way? Well, I think it's just going to be an endless fight,
I think that's an interesting comparison because, racism has never really disappeared. It's just that for a long time, it wasn't considered acceptable in society to talk that way and think that way. But now that there's somebody who is a major position of power is making it seem like it's not faux pas anymore. All of these closet racists are coming out. And the thing is, me and Mick Mann, the old show host that I worked with, have been talking for a long time about how they're going to be smashing barrels until midnight, just like they did with alcohol prohibition. So I think what's going to actually end up happening is that people in the mainstream are going to realize how common it really is that these non-violent people are getting arrested and criminal records. It's going to show that this has been happening for a long time, but when there's all this resistance to it, then it's going to be hard to ignore.
Well, that's where the medical cannabis comes into it, because on my show, making jokes and all that stuff's amazing, right? And it's well covered, very well covered. And so I don't focus on that. I'm focusing on the medical aspect. And the reason I'm doing that is for what you just said. The more people know that what I'm talking about is a viable option. And I don't say it's a cure-all. And I don't say that it's definitely going to fix everybody 100%, but it's an avenue that obviously does work a lot of the time. And so we just need to make sure that people do know that these fucking government lies about how it's not efficacious. That's the reason it's a Schedule I substance in the States. You have to be of no medical value to be a Schedule I drug. And they've already got patents on things regarding medical cannabis. Everybody knows what's going on. That predates Trump.
That was all through ever since Nixon. That thing's been in there. It's a Schedule I drug, which was originally designed. They knew it wasn't a good idea, that they didn't really need to do the drug war, but it was a great way to foment racism and to create the schisms that they're now suffering from in these kind of protests, etc. down there. This is all tied in together. It's amazing and sickening to think of, but the racism that you're seeing. So anyway, to reel it back in, you just need to know that this stuff works really well. It's also a food and everything. It's a food. It's a protein. It's an amino acid. It's got incredible enzymes, and it just normalizes the body. So if you're sick, or you know someone that is, which sounds like a terrible commercial, then and you know this works, then people are going to force the government. There's no turning it around for me, and there's no turning it around for you, because you guys have a thing called Pod TV, and a lot of people listening obviously have known this better than myself and longer than I have. It's just that I've been through the tunnel, so I can tell people exactly what it's like and how to go through. But tell your friend and tell your mom and tell your sister and tell your uncle who's straight as a pin and hasn't even looked at a joint that it's a medical option. It was good for 100 years before that as a medicine, right? So if there was a problem with it back then before they put the clamp on it, that probably would have arisen somewhere at the 5-year mark, perhaps of use, maybe the 10-year mark. They would have gone, hey, this stuff's terrible, we'll have to, or maybe the 15-year mark. They would have realized at that point, look, we've been using this stuff for 15 years, or 20 years maybe, or 50. No, it was a century of use. So there wasn't really a problem with it. They just needed to change the agenda and reset the tone and figure out ways to, own the press, like they're trying to do now again with the internet. Right. And have gone pretty much corporatized, but it was when the press came out in the first place that more people could learn about what was going on. And it's the same thing. It's like they've just taken control of the printing press again. So you just need to know that it's medically efficacious in so many respects. And if anybody wants to call it a placebo effect, fine. Fine. If I can cure cancer with a sugar pill, I'm not sure where there's any room for derision for using placebo. It's not a placebo. But anybody that wants to use it should be able to use it. So absolutely, you got to know this stuff works. There's numbers on. Listen, this country, Israel, which was formed in 1947, and less than 20 years later, they got a researcher there, Raphael. I hope I pronounce this right, Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, or don't know. Yeah, Mechoulam. Yeah. So this guy, in 1964 or 5, place isn't even 20 years old yet, he figures out the THC component. And from there, he does more and more research. So they know what's going on. There's a lot of cool things going on in Israel with the research factor of this. Not that you know about it. You have to dig and dig to get to it. But this guy that found that compound, THC, and understands this plant, I'd love to talk to this guy. If you're watching, sir, please come on. I'd love to have a chat with you. This guy actually found that it was called THC, and he says that it's a viable medical application, and he's still working on it. I mean, he's still working on it now, like 50 years later. So there's an expert. We don't see him on television when some cop comes on and says, oh, well, it's the same as alcohol, and we're going to test it. They don't have this guy on when they don't bring on the key player. They bring on some person that's already against it. They bring in someone who's predisposing to say, well, and there's this panic, right? Well, is there any way we can do this without the THC if I relent a little bit and allow you some of the substance? Why? Why do that? These things interact with each other. It's like pulling out those little straws in the Kerplunk game. They're all connected. So I don't know why they want to extract THC from it. This is like a moral problem for people to understand that your brain needs food and you're not feeding it if you don't give it cannabis. So we just need to tell people it's got to be a medicine that works, and people have used it, and so that's one reason to tell your legislator that you're not going to no for an answer, and it helps normalize the body to a place where you just don't really you're not fertile ground for illness, right? That's not all it is.
For sure. Now, Alan, I just wanted to we were talking a little bit about how you actually how you took the cannabis. And I was running around. We had some sound issues at the beginning of the show with the mic. So,
oh, sure. That's when I mentioned that I was shoving it up my ass.
Yes. And I was gonna say
recommend.
that's right. How you made it, the Phoenix Tears way, essentially, right? Like the Rick Simpson oil, as you call it. What can you give us a little bit more of what you actually did to make that oil, or what the method was?
This feels like a cooking show all of a sudden.
Well, the people that watch this show, a lot of them are alchemists, so they would probably like to hear some of this stuff.
I'd like to hear from everybody that has been watching this channel. I just found out a couple of weeks ago, because I'm a relative novice. I mean, I went through the hell tunnel, but I understand Pot TV is older than YouTube, so that's pretty cool.
It is.
So how I made it. I'm not going to tell you how to make it, because that's probably illegal. There's probably some weird law somewhere.
No, it's not. I tell people how to do everything on YouTube daily, so you can tell us anything you want. I'll do a video for you. I'll tell everybody. No problem.
We'll cool. Maybe somebody can animate it.
It's saving people's lives.
I just always ask people this because we like to pass on the knowledge if possible.
Okay, I'll make it real easy, but just these days with what's going on, we were talking about what's happening in politically states. I don't even know that by saying this, I'm not up for some kind of rendition to Syria or whatever.
Well, Trudeau, who knows with this guy? You never know what's going to happen. But
exactly.
we have
here we
medical's
go.
Cool.
Okay, I'll give you the finer points because just in case anybody does try this at home, I don't want there to be a problem. So the first thing I say is if you know how to make loose leaf tea and you know how to make reduce a sauce, if you know how to cook a tomato sauce to get it to reduce by gradually lowering the heat, you're good. So in my case, the best idea is that you need a pound to do this because one plant, this is so neat about it too, one fully grown plant pretty much is a pound. 1 pound pretty much is just that one plant, and that one plant, that 1 pound costs what it costs, and then you reduce that one plant down to the full 60 grams. It just keeps staying in the same wheelhouse all the way down, so it's very simple, unless you've got your cannabis provided for you. But 1 pound plant becomes this what they use. Okay, so once I had a pound, I found it difficult to prepare the pound as stated on all the recommended websites because it's a lot. It's a big amount, and I'm just talking about a home kitchen here. So I cut it into quarters, and I did it a quarter at a time. And isn't it amazing how doing it like that, I wound up getting just shy of 15 grams every time, times 4 is 60. It works out amazingly well. So here's what you do. There's a process called decarboxylation. You'll have to read up on it yourself because I'm not as well versed as I'd like to be, and I don't claim to be. But that's basically heating the cannabis so that you get the properties out of it, and you convert the THCA to THC. And that's what you're doing when you smoke a joint. The heat from it is turning it around. So you don't want to burn it. You put it on a cookie sheet and you put it in at a low heat, like 200 for 10 minutes or something.
No, you got to seal it into a jar.
You got to seal it. I want to get to the other part that I do know about now, though. But check that out, decarboxylation. So then the next thing that happens was, so now you've got this this sort of ground up. You grind it up really fine, like it looks like loose leaf tea. It looks like Chinese green tea, and you have it in that way so that it's easier for the surface area, I guess, to leach out into the alcohol. I used 99.9% alcohol. There are other solvents. Rick recommends naphtha. The word freaks me out. Every time I think naphtha, I think of that stench that I used to smell when I have a urination somewhere in public. Mothballs. So I didn't really take that on too well. So I used the alcohol, although he recommends the other. And so then you take 4 cups or so of this alcohol, and you put in a half of the quarter pound, so like a very small amount, and it's ground up, and it goes into the alcohol and soaks for 3 or 4 minutes. You stir it around, then you're going to have a green liquid. It's going to look like a light green, like almost gasoline looking, and then you strain that. And I used a gold coffee strainer because gold pure, and I didn't really want to get it into the paper filter. So I put it through there. You strain the alcohol that's now all green, and you've got that in a I just had a saucepan, on the stove. They make sauce. It was a clear brown glass one. I preferred to use that because I had it. I guess you can use steel. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But just a saucepan that could hold like a liter or a quart of liquid. And you've got that on. Not a flame. Definitely not a flame. And definitely not a red hot ring sort of stove, like a hot knife stove from yesteryear. You need a black flat element that's not going to light up and stay flat black. So I wound up purchasing a 2-ring, what do they call that? The 2-ring burners, hot plate. And I cooked it on there, so it's just like a black ring that heats up and a black pad that heats up that doesn't turn orange or red. You don't need that. And so then the glass pan is sitting in there. The alcohol that you've infused with the cannabis is in there, and you're watching it boil. You bring it to a boil. It's boiling so rapidly and with tiny bubbles, it looks like ginger ale or champagne, and it's going quite active. And then over time, you're lowering the heat because it's getting thicker and the alcohol is vaporizing and disappearing, which is what you want. And the thicker it gets, you need to turn down the heat, right? Otherwise, you're going to burn it, and you don't want to do that. And so you have to spend about 5 or 6. I found I was spending about 5 or 6 hours doing each quarter. But what else was I doing? I was sitting in my house, not working, and probably not going to live. And I didn't know it was going to work yet. I mean, I was only trying it because it was the only option. I didn't think, this will be great. It took a lot of. I just had to ride it out. So I didn't care about how long it took, 5 or 6 hours to cook. So I had to do that 4 times for the pound. And that was the first time I used that application, that medication. So basically, just to recap, you got a 1/4 pound of stuff, and you cut that in half, and you grind that up, you decarboxylate it, and or not, depending on your research, and then you add the alcohol to this, and you pour it in. Oh, and here's the cool thing. While you're doing all of that, you take the now wet alcohol-infused cannabis that you'll never be able to smoke again, and you put it back in the alcohol. You put it back in the glass beaker with the alcohol, and then whatever's left in there, whatever of the terpenes and the various components, the phytocannabinoids, whatever's going on in there, the final amount of those will be sucking out of there while you're cooking the other one down. So when I got to about the halfway point of cooking the first one down, I would then, re-add the last vestiges from it, and then lower it down again. So it would take 5 or 6 hours, and then at the end of that time, you've got this thin tar level going across the bottom of the saucepan, which I just left in there, put the lid on it, and every time I needed to take it, I would take a clear, those little capsules. I don't have any on me here. It's just like a little vitamin capsule, and but it's empty. It's clear. You can get them gelatin, or you can get them non-gelatin if you're vegetarian or vegan or whatever. And I would just scrape it along the bottom of the pot until I had what I thought was needed, and then you could pop the cap on and swallow it. That's what I did to be able to make it portable. If I had 2 or 3 doses a day and I wasn't going to be home, I'd just do that, like little vitamin pills. So it was pretty easy. I streamlined it down, and but if you could cook a pound at once, that would, then you're done, right? That would be a lot easier. But that's basically it. Wow,
that's great, man. I really appreciate that.
No problem. And I'm happy to talk about it with anybody who finds out that they've got this bad news, or they want to know the methodology, or they want to talk to me. I'm easy to reach. I'm not hiding from anybody. I'm all over Facebook and Twitter before this happened, and now even more so. So, I'm not hard to get a hold of if you want to talk.
Very cool.
That goes for everybody in the world.
We should talk a bit about the podcast.
Okay, sure.
So, Green Crush.
Green Crush, yeah.
So you're on episode 5 already.
I am. Yeah, I've done episode 5, and then on episode 6 was supposed to be on Tuesday, but we had some technical issues, and so I was doing it today, and it's not finished yet. I'll drop it soon, and then we go live again Tuesdays at 2:03 on YouTube. Green Crush, Allen Park. Yeah. So what happened there is I had already been doing a podcast before for Sirius XM, and a couple of years ago that stopped. At the same time, I was too sick to do it. They were telling me they didn't want it anymore, so that was a kind of a happy breakup. And then I did a bunch of them on my own, but it was really difficult because I was pretty ill. But I've always liked podcasting. I've always liked radio and sound and theater and listening to things in headphones. I've always liked that my whole life. So I wanted to do this thing, and but then I couldn't do the conspiracy one anymore. And quite frankly, it's difficult because the younger mindset today, they don't want to hear about conspiracies because it's either it's too old, it's too boring, I don't care. Most of the footage is in black and white, or it's they don't believe it, or they don't want to hear it, or they think it, whatever the reason is. There seems to be a swing the other way there for some clandestine and suppressed information, as though that doesn't take place from people that want to make sure they keep their fat slice of pie. But it turns out I wanted to tell my story about what happened to me with the cancer, with what it's changed in my life, how it's affected my personal life, how everything in my personal life has been affected by this. I didn't get my life back. When I got sick, you go, oh God, I want to get my life back. I didn't get my life back. I got back almost a completely different one. And that's okay. You know, it's just the way things worked out, and it's good and bad. It's good and bad. But at least I have one, you know, and that's all right. So I needed to bring all of these thoughts forward, and I started talking about the cannabis and the cancer on my previous show. I'd bring it up once in a while, especially when I had a lag due to some kind of pain. And I'd tell my listeners, like, oh, sorry, I was gone for 3 weeks. I know you're expecting regular hits. You want to drop it on a regular basis, but it's tough. And I'd go into it a little bit and then get into the topic of the show, which was inevitably different. So when I got to the point where I'm healthy again and I want to make another show again, I wasn't feeling like I wanted to kind of crack open the conspiracy wagon again. But I do want to tell everybody about what happened because it feels great to talk about it, because I know it's helped people. It's helped people. And I thought, I can't have this conversation that I'm having with you now every day with one or two other people. And I want all of this information and how to get through this frigging mess, my style, out there for people that also might find like, hey, I don't want to die either. What's this guy talking about? So I needed to come up with a way to deliver that information. It became a lot more important to me than talking about conspiracies. So I can talk about conspiracies because I researched them and I'm knowledgeable on them. I could talk about this because I went through it. And it's been really dark, and I found my way out, and it's in my heart, not just in my brain. And so that just gives it more momentum. So then I had to come up with, I want to have a name of something, and I didn't want to use cannabis, and I didn't want to use cancer in the title. No offense to anybody that does, but there's cannabis culture in Canada, the word is all over the place. And so you want to distinguish yourself from that. At this point anyway. I mean, the cannabis culture has been around forever now, so that's great. They've got that name down, but you're not going to find me necessarily in that way. So I thought, what if I just invent, if I call it Beating Cancer with Cannabis or something like that. And I just didn't like any of them. And then I just thought, I just boiled those two things into two words. So cannabis became green, and what I want to do became crush, which is crushing cancer and crushing the mindset that allows stupid laws that prevent people from accessing the medicine that can crush cancer. And so it just became Green Crush. And then the big decision one day over coffee was, do I put a "the" in front of it or not? And I decided against it. So it's just Green. And the. I just went to Green Crush. So that's all that is. And then I was able to hook up with a couple of people from Too Far TV, producer team, Danny Sakamoto. No. It's Danny Menlo and Kim Sakamoto. Kim's from BC, Duncan, BC. And those folks came across my story back in April, this year, 2017, and we became a trio of co-conspirators, if you will, to get this word out. So we three are Green Crush. I hope to build that. I do want to extract a living out of this disease that tried to kill me twice. And let's throw in the third time. And get to this. Because the second time of being told I was going to be checking out for sure, once I pulled out of that, the summer of 2015. This is another knock on Big Pharma. I had been on a sort of a handful of medicines from my doctor, from laxatives and stool softeners and all kinds of weird things that I was gradually getting rid of. And I was also on Lyrica for nerve pain because I had a tough time in my lower back for a while. And
they were
and
pumping
so
full of all kinds of stuff.
I was just full of junk there. And so Lyrica is a great pain reliever. Wow, it's really effective. I'm not advertising it, just stating a fact. And then, but you only want to be on it for 2 or 3 weeks, I think. So I didn't realize it, but I've been on this thing for like 3 months. And as I was getting rid of all the other meds and just self kind of dropping them if I felt better, I was going, hey, I don't need any stools any softer than this. They're perfect right now. So I stopped doing that, and I stopped doing everything. And then my gal at the time says, she pointed out to me later that you've never tried to get off this drug before, because when I gave up Lyrica, I was initially taking, I think it was 125 milligrams a day, and then I was gradually down through the doctor's prescription to 100 and then 50, because they come in 25 milligram amounts. So when I stopped taking them, I was only taking 25 milligrams at a time, but I'd been winnowing that down from a larger dose over 3 months, and I stopped taking that pill. And at the time I didn't make the connection. My gal at the time made the connection, but I was just done. I was just thinking, I've been through a lot of shit, and I'm not out of the woods by any means, and I'm doing a ton better, but, work's hard. People know about this now. They probably don't want to hire me because I'm stage 4, blah, blah, blah. And in a very kind of casual, unemotional session of just self-thought, I thought, yeah, I'm just going to kill myself. And it wasn't a big deal. And so I was kind of upset about that, and I thought, well, how would I do that? What would I do to do that? And, it took a couple of days to just ponder it, and it was making me more sad to think about it. But again, it wasn't very dramatic at all. It was just like, so do you want, you're on an airplane. It's like, well, do you want chicken or do you want fish? And you go, well, I've had the chicken last time. Might as well have the fish. And that's how I was feeling. But the factor that I was pondering was taking my own life. And I was feeling really kind of strange and shitty about it. And then my gal says, well, it's probably to do with that drug. And I said, I've been giving up drugs constantly. I don't think that's what it is. I think I'm just ready to go. And then it turns out that it was that drug. So I went back to my doctor and told him. And when I said, Doc, I gave this up, he was so apologetic. The second guy, the first guy that I had, we're not the best friends. But this guy that I have now, he was so apologetic, and he admitted it, an oversight, and oh my God. So we got me back on the Lyrica at 50 milligrams. And I was on there for... gosh, I don't remember now, 10 or 12 days or something. And I started to winnow down over the period of a couple of weeks, or maybe 20 days, or maybe 3 weeks or so, or 4 weeks. I started to take it down, and then I was taking the 25s, and then I cut the 25s in half to take kind of 12-ish. Then check this out. I go, okay, I'm good. I took the 12s I took half pills for maybe 4 or 5 days, and then I said, okay, 3 or 4 days. And then I said, okay, that's it. I'm not going to take it tomorrow. I'm good. I'm done. And do you know, the next day I didn't take that thing, and by the end of the day, it was kind of in my mind again. Maybe I'll do this. That's the bloody drug again. And then I let it go, and I was fine, and I came out of it. So that was the third hammer that would have almost... Imagine getting through stage 4 cancer off the slab twice against all odds and against all professional advice, only to take your own life. And I think a lot of people that are killing themselves. It's amazing how they don't look into, and they don't say, Barry so-and-so threw himself off the Burrard Bridge. Well, let's see what Barry's medical history was. And then all of a sudden you find that he was on antidepressants, and maybe a lot, and maybe he stopped taking them, or he was taking too many, or he was still taking them. But if you had a fucking joint in your hand and you took the plunge, boy, be all over page 1, right? But they don't talk about impaired driving with people taking Xanax and antidepressants and any of those other mood changers, those mood enhancers. You're not blowing to see if you've got some kind of one of those chemicals in your body that might be adjusting your thinking. But we got to come up with some bullshit technology to tell us that this guy who's testing positive for cannabis at the side of the road is impaired, even though the cannabis stays in your body for a month. So I don't trust.
They have to do impairment tests.
In triplicate, yeah.
Those blood tests are just bullshit. It's not scientific anyways. These nanogram limits that they're imposing. And
Yeah,
stuff is
talking about transparency, let's take a look at the financial portfolios of every single government spokesman for these roadside testing devices to see if they're involved in any kind of investing in the company that makes these devices.
Oh, man.
Where's that? Can we talk
about
about
the
that,
LPs?
Justin? Can we talk about that, Justin? Can we get that going on? Can we have a little chat? And can you look at my medical records? Justin Trudeau, globetrotter, sayer of false things. Can we have a little debate again? One more time. CBC, are you there? Hello? I used to work.
That'd be awesome.
They don't talk to me anymore.
I want to see that happen.
Yeah, me too.
No, these guys, man. But I mean, think of the LPs and all. Have you seen that list that's been circulating with the long list of former liberals and former law enforcement officials that are part of the licensed producers now?
Yeah,
they're all
like I lived in Ontario in the '90s, and we had a really far right-wing government that was almost as far as Christy Clark. But the Mike Harris years were very punitive. The economics have been shown that trickle-down bullshit doesn't work. And anyway, that's where the austerity, Christine Lagarde, head of the IMF, is shitting her diapers right now because she's in trouble and saying, sorry about Greece, I was wrong. But and by the way, a straight person, right, who's not really smoking, those are the decisions, right? When you're not on cannabis, you decide to impose austerity on Greece and then it fucks up and you're wrong. But back in, what was I talking about there? God, I lost my thread. There's so many threads on this friggin' floor. But basically, it's a medicine. I'll come back to that. You guys are probably going to watch something else on a Friday night. But I was trying to make a cool point there. But really, I've lost track of how many points I'm trying to make. I need some cards here. Wow. What next? What next?
What is it? What are you smoking over there? What about,
Me
how about
personally?
that question? Yeah. What are you puffing on?
Oh, this thing. Yeah. Right. Oh, this old thing. Oh God. This is a fantastic little item, by the way. Stores in Bickle. This German company that makes the
volcano makers.
Yeah. I love this thing. It's been flawless. I've got something in here called watermelon. You ever heard of that?
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I heard of it a few times.
Is that the crafty or the mighty one you've got there?
This is the mighty.
The mighty.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in the crafty because it doesn't have the bottom. See, this is a temperature control gauge, so if you got moist bud, you can raise it, and if it's dry, you lower it so it doesn't burn. But the mighty is this. It's a pretty good sized thing. And then the crafty doesn't have that, so it's that small. And then it doesn't have one of the batteries, so it's handy. It's tiny, right? Mm-hmm. But you need to download an app to be able to then on your phone, if you need to change the temperature, then you can change the temperature. I just wasn't into all that. I don't want to start playing.
Oh, no, that's weird.
I'm trying to mellow out. So I'm having a nice sativa right now, everybody. Sativa, brought to you by Cannabis. Cannabis, brought to you by the maker of the planet. The maker of the planet. The guy that people swear to follow even though they make up laws to prevent access. Hey, crack the Bible open. Have you got one kicking around? Anybody watching this, if you got a Bible right now, crack open page 1, Genesis there. Jump up to chapter 1, verse 11, 12. Right in there, it explains how we're given this substance. It's one of the first things God does, and then he says it's good. So I really don't understand how a guy wearing a black robe who's in some kind of club that dreamed up a judiciary where they have a baffle-gab sort of legal system where you can't understand stuff unless you go to school for 8 years and memorize 15 gigantic phone books worth of jargon, is going to tell me whether or not I'm able to use this or not. No so basically, I'm going with the big guy, and you can have your little robes and your clubs and fuck off.
I was laughing because Chris Bennett joined the chat. I saw he was watching. Look at some of Chris Bennett's research about cannabis in the Bible. There's like Jesus was basically a pothead cruising around.
What's his name? Chris Bennett?
Anointing people in cannabis oil. Do you know about Chris Bennett's research?
No. I want to know if it's 2 T's or not, because I'll look him up after this is over.
It is 2 N's, 2 T's. Chris Bennett.
Thanks.
Yeah, he's done a ton of research, has several books. about the historical use of cannabis and about famous instances of the historical use of cannabis in the Bible, in other places, but what his research of just the Bible alone is pretty amazing.
Wow.
And about the fact, so Jesus, who is the Christos, who goes around christening people in oil, healing the sick by christening
What kind
them
of
in
oil was it, by the way? What kind of oil was he doing that?
It was called, it was cannabosum oil.
Oh, okay.
Cannabosum oil.
Oh, okay.
And so Chris Bennett and Dr. Carl Ruck and others who have pioneered this information and who have put a whole bunch of puzzle pieces together on this have basically proven through etymology that the word cannabosum is cannabis.
Oh, I would have thought it was oxycodone. I didn't know. Oh, God, of course. Yeah, the same word being. And let's talk about the pharaohs buried in the pyramids where they've been finding cannabis and traces and elements and accoutrements as well in the friggin' pyramids. You know.
Oh, yeah, the historical use goes back all over the place. People have been using it for thousands of years for sacramental use and all kinds of things. So it's, it's one of the oldest things. It's as old as dirt.
But it makes it clear, though, why you would, if you were setting the agenda and profiting from things the way they are, it makes it clear why you would suppress that information. I'm sure Mr. Bennett there started to find out about this stuff because he was using the substance in the first place.
Yeah, well, he talks about, he had sort of an epiphany, actually, about the whole thing. And his sort of revelation was that the mentions in the Bible of the tree of life basically would be perfectly fit to the cannabis plant. And
I think that's exactly what it was. Can I run this by you? All right. And before we carry on, I just want to say as well, if you're not religious, if you're not a Christian or you don't believe in the Bible and you think this is ridiculous, that's okay. Because the Bible that you're going to want to put your hand on when you go to court and the folks that run the system have incorporated the Bible as a tool in their system. So it doesn't matter if you're a believer or not. You don't have to worry about that. You just take the data. You're just, as a non-believer, you'd say, well, you believe in it and I'm using it. So, there's no argument there. But
Right.
You're going to love Chris Bennett.
Chris Bennett, I'm looking forward to spending some time with what you're saying about him because I love this stuff. It all makes a lot of sense that this information has been suppressed. That's why I said at the beginning of the show, we do need more information, but that's not the only note on the piano. We need to find the means to make sure everybody gets a hold of the information. And I think with everybody either being sick or knowing someone that is, it seems like at this point we should pretty soon be able to make everybody understand that this historical substance that all these people were using is effective.
I think that's why it's important, super important, to share the stories like yours so that people actually know. Because, we hear a lot about, cannabis cures cancer, and people are saying this. And I try to avoid that sort of terminology. I try to avoid it because they haven't, the doctors haven't come forward and science hasn't declared that it cures it. But there's so much evidence that it works.
Well, what I think is that I never tell anybody that it cures cancer. And people often say to me, oh, so you cured cancer and can you help me cure cancer? And cure is a big word. That's why the FDA got rid of using it a long time ago. Yeah. Cure is a very, but when I've thought about it, the way I see things, it's all about perspective, right? And having been a person who has used cannabis for solely recreational purposes as far back as, I'm not recommending this, I'm just admitting, since 14-15, I think, was the first time I did it. It was a very funny event that I'm sure a lot of my friends, if they're watching, will remember about how I was melting.
15.
I was at a jam with some high school pals, and I didn't know how to play any kind of instrument, but I was leaning against a giant PV bass cabinet, and whoever was playing the bass, and I was it just numbed me right out. I thought I was going to melt into the ground. But this stuff is, what the hell was I talking about there? Getting involved with this stuff is and I think it's also sometimes taken me to the point where I see this as, it's not really curing the disease. Although it seems I don't have the disease. My doctor won't rescind the diagnosis. I just keep going for blood tests every 3 months. Every level that I have is completely normal, and then I go back 3 months later. They're not going to roll that back. They're not going to go, oh, you're back to 3, you're back to 2, you're back to 1, you're out. At least they haven't done that to me. So I'm just a guy on tap. But basically what I think, and what this I'm about to say fits that paradigm. And if I'm wrong, fine, point it out to me. But this is kind of the way it's been going, is that you don't cure the disease, okay? You render your body and brain and blood cells, you render your biological unit incapable of hosting disease. So you can't get sick and you can't be sick. So it's not really attacking the cancer like you're going to take a knife and cut it out of something. It's revitalized. Imagine if you had a garden where you grew tomatoes or wheat or whatever or any kind of thing, and then it gets to the point where it's too close to the road, so there's like car spray going into it, like rocks and shit. And then maybe some jagoff decided to pour a bucket of paint into it, and then it got some other stuff going. So now this bed of earth that's growing these plants, now these plants are going to be pretty screwed up, right? And you're going to go, oh, we have to cure the plant. We have to fix this plant. We have to get this tomato plant fixed. And so they cut off some of the shitty part of the tomato plant that has failed, and they surgically remove that, right? And then hopefully, things will be okay. And then maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I'm not doing that. I'm not curing the disease at all. I'm not even saying that at all. I don't want to get in trouble for that legally, and it's also the truth. What I'm doing is rendering my body to be that garden, and the earth that's, my biological makeup has been cleaned, has been, whatever the cannabis oil does, whatever I think it might also have to do with, and this is another thing, is like it renders yourself neutral to that, but it also helps create the absorption, again, the normalization of the intake of all of the nutrients that you take in all your other foods. Mm-hmm. So you're greasing the path to be as healthy as you can be if you're eating properly, and you're no longer, you've just put clean dirt in that garden and started over again. And you keep on taking the cannabis from time to time, make sure that no new weeds or toxins or poisons get into that garden. So
you build a wall between the garden and the cars, right?
What's that?
You build a wall between the garden and the cars.
You build a wall between it. You keep revitalizing it all the time. It's like doing weeding. Like if you have a garden, like a flower garden, say, and it's got weeds in it, it looks like shit. So you take them out, and you just keep doing that. So that's why you have to keep, that's the biggest thing. I wanted to say that too at the end, if we're there or close, I don't want to forget, is that at the end of the completion of doing the full Rick Simpson oil course, the RSO, once you're done and everything's great. Every once in a while, I have to go back in there and do it again. I don't do the full course. I'm kind of winging it to experiment with that and taking some notes. I think but there's definitely a maintenance schedule, because I went to a really bad place physically, and some damage has been done. I mean, the cannabis isn't going to necessarily reverse some of the problems that happened before I got to it. But so I consider myself more susceptible to fall into the pit again, and that's my justification to keep using it. So there are maintenance courses later that people can do.
And Alan, how long was the first one? From the time that you started using it until the time that your numbers were all the way down, what was that period?
Well, when I started using it was November 21st, 2013. A few days later, I wasn't in any kind of pain. And 5 weeks later, I got my doctor, my professional expert doctor, talking to me for the first time. Of course, by that time, I'd already been doing the oil and acclimatized. But once you get going, you've got 60 grams, that's the 1 plant, that's the 1 pound, 60 grams of oil, and it takes 90 days to take it in, because you can't do 1 gram a day at the very beginning. It's too much. It's way too much. You have to acclimatize and get used to it. And I say that because I'm not being a prude. I'm saying it because, it'll hit you so hard, even if you've been a cannabis user before. It'll just punch you in the face. You'll fall down, literally fall down, maybe hurt yourself. You might black out for such a long time that you feel uncomfortable from it. And I know this to be a fact from other people I've talked with about it. And so you need to diminish greatly the very initial doses. So when you're taking 1 gram a day, once you get it rolling, you start with literally a pinhead a day. 2 or 3 times a day. A pinhead, like every 8 hours or so, or even sometimes just once a day if people can't handle it. Because as soon as the non-cannabis user, like your Aunt Gladys, who never touched it in her life but now has a stage 3, whatever the hell, it's going to freak her out. And she's going to get scared and say, oh, I think this is a really bad idea, where if she was doing chemo, she'd do it no questions asked and be hurling constantly. And that means vomiting if you're in a different country, and my parlance went too local, from the chemotherapy. So, it's something that you really have to start out very incrementally, and then as you graduate, and you're really high at the beginning and you're hardly taking any, and then as you roll down the calendar, you're actually taking more and more in, and it's affecting you less. The psychoactive part diminished to the point where while I was on the oil full bore, I could smoke a giant joint or hit a bong, which I don't usually do. Personally, I vaporize more, as you saw there. And I was doing that as well, but I wasn't feeling high at all. And that's the other, I like to look through the telescope and turn it around the other way sometimes. Maybe that's why you can't see something. That's what I like to do. And I realize, wait a second, hang on. With all the lies and all the forceful nature of the government, and wouldn't it be incredible if instead of being high and getting high, and it's a problem being high, and people shouldn't be high. You should just stay here, right? Maybe if we were really taking this stuff properly, and I mean, as well as recreationally, I mean medicinally, but I also mean nutritionally. And if we were taking this in enough amounts, let's say from, zygote right on up through babyhood, and if that's a word, childhood, and by the time you're finished and wired up at that point, at the age of 23, 4, whatever it is, when you're a full adult, and you've been taking this nutritional supplement, maybe there isn't any high, huh? Because what I found was I was taking a gram a day of very potent stuff on both counts of CBD, obviously, and THC. And then I'm smoking and trying to actually get high, and it wasn't happening anymore. And then I realized it's a bastardization. You don't get high. You're supposed to be there already. You're supposed to have that level of health and ability already. Okay, vegan who doesn't bother supplementing with B12, you're going to be a mess if you're a vegan and you don't get your B12. Everybody needs B12. So if you're a vegan, you're a researched and smart vegan, you know how to supplement for B12. But you can't be a vegan and just eat celery and potato chips all the time, right? So if you're going to do that and you don't get your proper nutrition, physically you're going to suffer. Maybe you'll get a cancer. Maybe you'll get some kind of thing from not eating properly to that level of negligence when you're just eating crap. And a lot of people, that happens to them. But maybe if you're properly nutritionally sound with, what are we allowed to have, Mr. Government? Only just 4 plants in my house? But Mr. Government, what if I want more than 4 plants in my house? Then, you need it as a food. You need 10 plants in your house. And then you juice it in a slow masticating grinder, and you live your entire life with this shit in you. You don't get high. So what's going on? You're already at a level, right? And then when you don't get it for whatever reason, some military junta or Duterte in the Philippines or whatever restrictive leader wants to take office, now you're not getting your vitamin B12 anymore, and you're getting sicker and sicker. Or now you're not getting your cannabis. And then if you withdrew from cannabis, you get to the point where where we are right now, mostly everybody is low. We're low because we're low. We're anemic. We don't have what we need to be who we are because it's been denied from us ever since the people that choose to rule us and have found a way to do so have been able to prevent us getting access to this thing that if we had enough of it, they wouldn't be able to rule us. So I understand that there's a motive there, quite likely. But once again, real quick, you're supposed to have this in your body. You're endogenous, which means your body has it, like your lungs, your cardiopulmonary system, your lymphatic system, your digestive system, and your endocannabinoid system. And you're starving it to fucking death, man. If you're not taking this stuff, you're literally starving it to death. And if you weren't, and I wish I found this earlier in my life, if you weren't and you had it in you all the time, maybe you can be like a 55-year-old man like me who's had 2 horrible bouts of stage 4 cancer, foregone all of the treatments that weren't offered because I was too far advanced to even get on those treatments. And there was only this one thing left. You know, if it turned out that like hanging upside down at the swing set at the park near my house, eating chocolate banana muffins by inserting it through my nose was going to be the thing to turn my cancer around, then I would have done that without asking permission. So we have to stop.
That might have worked, actually.
We have to stop pretending that these people can just sit behind a desk, write a bunch of shit down on a piece of paper, and then say, here's the reason why you're not allowed to save your own life. Like, these systems have to melt.
Yeah, no, it's brutal. And wow, man, what a story. And I think you're right. Actually, Ed Rosenthal calls it cannabinoid deficiency syndrome.
Oh, yeah, sure, perfect. CDS. Are you suffering from CDS? Yeah. Well, sit the fuck down and hit a bong. I mean, and it's not just about the bongs, though. It's not just about the fun times and the smokes. That's a nice little thing. But if you're really trying to turn yourself around from cancer, I mean, I've heard doctors say, you can't cure yourself from smoking a couple of joints. And that's a big, fat, ugly argument, because I'm not saying that. Nobody is, right? But they make it seem like that to the people. See, because there's a few bands of society. And basically, there's the people that understand that this stuff works. And then there's the people at the other end that they don't understand how it works. They don't believe how it works, and they're never gonna. And that's okay. I get that. I get it. That's okay. You can't have everything. But then there's this band in the middle, and that's who I'm really caring about, right? Because I mean, I care about everybody that gets it, and you guys and Pot TV, Cannabis Culture, and Mark Emery going to jail for fucking selling seeds in the mail. God, I get it. Like, that's all amazing stuff. But this should just be normal. I mean, we shouldn't even need to have a TV show about this. This is like having a TV show about almond butter. You know, I mean, we don't need to really be doing this. You know, this shouldn't be a problem. This shouldn't be a factor right here. It's a food and a vitamin. I mean, no offense to any of us, but now that I've been put in this position, I want to extract a living from this fucking terrible disease. And I hope to be able to do that, because I want to turn around and help other people realize this stuff works. Give it a shot. There's nothing to lose. And if you'll do chemo, there's no reason not to do this. And I've met so many people that are just jump right into the chemo, and they won't even try this because what might happen? Yeah.
Well, it's a safe alternative to pretty much everything else.
Yeah.
Alcohol itself for recreation and medicine.
Yeah, so if you get diagnosed, I know you're going to ask me something, but this is another important point. If you get diagnosed with some horrible thing, they're going to tell you, wow, we need to do a surgery on you, or we need to do a radiation, or we need to get started with chemo. Every time they tell you that, okay, every time, it depends on the severity of your cancer, being stage 1, 2, 3, 4, or precancerous. It comes to a certain level where there's timing issues and there's monetary issues, especially in America, where I don't know what the hell's going on down there with healthcare. I'd be like $19 million in debt right now, by the way, if I were living down there with what's happened to me. But I don't understand why they do that, by the way. But basically, it's important. Important things. God, what the frick was I going to say there? Oh God, this is the part where I do admit sometimes that I forget myself in the moment. But I don't know if that's just advancing age or normal senility. Anyway, I'm working on turning that around. But there's so many facets. Oh yeah, when you get diagnosed, okay, immediately do the oil, because your diagnosis is going to be a series of numbers. Whatever the condition, whatever they measure you for, you're going to get a series of numbers from the Emerge doc or your doc. Whenever they give you there's all kinds of different levels. Doesn't matter which ones. There's all kinds of different ones. In my case, it was a PSA level. Should be like nothing more than 2 or 3. It was 700, and a bunch of other levels too. And they'll do blood tests. And those levels are going to be out of whack if you're sick. And you're going to get that on your diagnosis. So ask them for the numbers. Like, say, what are the numbers? Give me a copy of the sheet. Always get a copy of the sheet. Whenever they do something to you, there's paperwork. Get it, because if you don't, it stacks up, and then you got to pay for it later, and it sucks. So just grab it for free. When they do it, they print it out right away and just stick it in a binder, and there's your little story, right? But when you get diagnosed, the day you get diagnosed, or I don't want to get in trouble for telling you what to do. If I were diagnosed today, if that happened to me, and it did, if that happened to me, I would immediately obtain the cannabis and start pounding away and contact me or somebody or YouTube or whatever. I'm sure there's a boatload of stuff in Pot TV archives and Cannabis Culture archives and all kinds of places, and find out how to do it and get on it, because whatever medical intervention they're going to do is going to be down the road. Maybe it's next Wednesday. Maybe it's a couple of weeks from now. I've heard of people, I know a guy in March who's going in to do something in October. So by the time you pound this cannabis oil and supplementary in the lungs, but when you get that done, 3, 4, 5 weeks, 5 days, in my case, I had 3 pinheads worth to turn my pain around, but 2, 3, 5 months down the road, you're waiting for chemo, or you're waiting to get into surgery, or you're waiting to get radiation. Hit this stuff. Hit it. Get it into you as quickly as you can, because when they initiate those medical interventions, 2, 3 days, week, whatever down the road, they're going to measure you again. And you're going to have different numbers. And they won't have done any treatment yet. And it's funny to watch them sputter and choke and wonder what the hell's going on. But you know what's going on. And then at that point, you'll say, well, give me another week before I jump on that chemo lounger, the lazy boy with the stuff going in your arm. Give me a couple more weeks with this, doc, at which point, or surgery or whatever it is, just kick it down the road. Because if you're going on it, this is the amazing thing. It's kind of like earthquakes, where the next number up is not just one more. It's what's the friggin' mathematical word?
Exponential.
Exponentially bigger. Because as you're aging, and as your immune system is already so fucked it's been hit by cancer, and as the cancer is supposedly ravaging through you, your chances for turning it around become incremental, exponentially larger. And that is the amazing thing about it. It's not just like lowering a thermostat in the living room. It's a big number. It's a lot of work to get to a far better number, and they freak out. Okay,
So, Alan, I missed that part earlier because we were having some sound issues, so I don't know how clearly that came through. But
let me say,
when your doctors first saw this happening and they were freaking out, like, what did they denied that it was cannabis, or how did that go?
It went like this. I figured they would deny it was cannabis, and so I didn't say anything. I just said, well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, that's great for me, right? He's like, yeah, I just can't figure it out. And I'm going, oh, cool. And I held my tongue on this for 2 reasons. One, I knew it was the cannabis that was working because there was nothing else. Here's this guy freaking out. And number 2, I just didn't trust that. I just wanted to keep it from him. I didn't want to taint. See, because what I was afraid of at that point is, you hope it's working, right? You want it to work. You're doing it. You're trying to get out of this jam. And so I didn't want any extra negativity than was already going on in a person who's dying with cancer's life. And I didn't want to get a bunch of bullshit sort of negative feedback. And I've seen a lot of that kind of thing happen, where the doctors are the boss and they're the ones that know everything, and you don't know anything. And I've been doing this for my career, and I went to school for 7 years before I became a specialist, which are all great things. But I knew the cannabis was working. And he was telling me he didn't know how it could possibly be the case. So given that was the story, I didn't want to taint his mindset to the point where I said, hey, I'm doing it with cannabis, in case he was negative about it. And I figured he probably would be, because I also figured I'm not the first guy this has happened to. Right. So I can't be. It's ridiculous. So basically, I didn't tell him for like 5 months. And the numbers just kept getting better and better. And as they kept getting better and better, eventually I got to a point where I then knew for sure no one was going to be able to tell me that it wasn't working. And at one particularly exasperated thing that he was saying regarding a test that was getting better and better, I told him, I said, there is a reason for this, right? He's like, oh, what's that? And I told him, and he goes, oh, I can't recommend that. I think that's a bad idea. Yeah. And at that point, man, that was the pivot. That was the fucking pivot for me. When he said that, like I said, if I was sitting upside down eating sundaes on my roof or swinging in the park, I can't even believe that this would be spoken against in any capacity. Because I'm doing better. I share with this guy the one thing that he doesn't know about me at that point, medically speaking. And he advises against it. So no wonder he didn't find it when it was already written up that it does actually respond in a curative manner. Although that's not my word, but this paper from England from 2009. I just know that if I were an expert on something, as he is touted to be, in my field, I would hear anything to the contrary or anything new like that by researching it, right?
I can't believe that he would say something so insanely ignorant.
He recommended against it. It's pretty.
Well, I can't advise. Well, it's just wow.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremiah, cannabis
mind-blowing.
is extremely
Mind-blowing.
dangerous to the bottom line profits of the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
So that's why. I mean, they pay
These
his. They
fucking
pay
guys,
his.
though.
As soon as you go
mortgage
through,
for him, so.
It's like, oh, that thing that saved your life. Well, no, I can't advise that. I would advise that you die.
yeah. But as soon as you go to that pharmaceutical profits thing, people freak out and go, "Oh, so it's a conspiracy theory? Oh God, here's another conspiracy theory from you." And I have to ask those people, what exactly is so weird about a conspiracy theory that with all of the motive that's there and all of the resulting factors that are there, what's so weird about a few people sitting around a big table in a building high up in the sky going, how can we secure enough of the market to fatten our already multi-billion-dollar profit margin? Like, what's so weird about that?
It's not weird. It's standard operating procedure. That's
Yeah.
what they do every damn day. That's their whole thing.
Like, I've been
and
teased
all
for
of
that
it-
constantly, right? I've been ridiculed and, you know, whatever. I don't care, you know, because, I mean, I'm still here. I don't give a shit. This is all, like, extra credits for me. I feel like this is the end of the Avengers movie, and everybody left the theater, and I'm watching the little funny bits while the credits roll, and then just before I get up to leave, they put on a whole different movie, and I get to watch that. So I'm on the other side of the fucking divide, man. I'm back from the dead. I'm stage 5. They said there's no such thing, but that's the fucking point. Here it is. You can live beyond this stuff. You know, they got to stop. They got to stop putting a roadblock into something. I mean, I'm just going to keep shouting this thing until I wind up telling everybody, or wind up like Michael Hastings, one or the other.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And we're glad for it. And Alan, tell them about the podcast. Where can they find this? What's the address?
Green
I did
Crush.
put a link to it on the website at pot.tv. It's already there in the show post. But
Yeah.
What's the actual URL?
Okay, well, the Twitter handle is at Green Crush Pod. The URL right now, gee whiz, I don't have that, but from what I understand, if you go on YouTube and punch in Green Crush Allen Park, there it is for you. That's all you have to do. And so we
get that. I have it. I can bring it up here. Actually, I think
Okay.
it was. There's a podcast site that you guys. It's Podbean or something like that.
Podbean, yeah, Podbean.
Yeah, exactly.
So
But,
we
we'll
out
get
of
that up here in just a second. Here, I had it in front of me, but it disappeared.
we come out of
Bit a glitchy
Eggplant
system
Digital.
today.
It's Eggplant Digital, and we're like it's a new platform of interactive podcast broadcasting, brought to you by the good folks at Eggplant Sound, downtown Toronto. So they've been great, and we come from Pacific Junction Hotel. That's where I do it live. Great place, great food. Come on down, talk. Let's get you in the booth, 234 King Street East in Toronto. And we do the show on Tuesdays at 2:03, and except for last Tuesday when there was some kind of bizarre glitch. But we'll be down there doing it every week, hopefully, and getting the message out and you know, explaining things to people. And you can go on and download the previous episodes right now. So that's all I can tell you. We don't really have a website proper, although we're on Facebook at Green Crush Podcast as well. Just put Green Crush into Facebook. You'll see us there. You can see us on Twitter. And if you really know anybody at all that's unwell, or if you've ever been unwell yourself, you're a candidate to take this substance that could turn your life around, and tell your legislator. And if we can get everybody in that category, that's everybody. And if we've got everybody, that's fucking democracy. So you can tell these guys to just back off of the paperwork a little bit, and we're going to take it from here. Thanks a lot.
Alan, thank you so much, man. Green Crush with Alan Park is the show, and
Green
it's
Crush.
the address I have it here is greencrushpod.podbean.com.
God,
That's the one. greencrushpod.podbean.com. If you can remember that, or just put in Green Crush with Alan Park into Google. I'm sure you'll find it.
That's it.
It's also on the front page of Pod TV right now. There's a link to it. And Alan, we'll have you back again soon for sure. I'd love to talk to you about this again and about all kinds of other stuff. It's been fun talking to you, man. And you have a wealth of knowledge and a pleasure having you on Pod TV.
Hey, really, thanks for bringing me on. It's really great for the show to get a boost, and it's really great for your established audience to tap into something. I want to say I'm going to be at the Karma Cup on September 9-10. This is the thing I just found out about last year. Like, I'm not a cool guy that smokes weed all the time. I use the medicine, and I'm kind of reverse order going into the culture. These guys, and you were talking about it also, right? Don't you have something like that as well? It's a cup for whoever puts together the best strain and the best. What's going on with that?
Oh yeah. So strain judging competitions, they call them Cannabis Cups if they're owned by High Times.
Right.
There's other ones, of course, like the Karma Cup, like the Prairie Medicinal Harvest Cup. There's a ton of them. Karma Cup's amazing. You'll have a lot of fun at the Karma Cup. Our friend Sarah Sunday puts that together. Actually, we'll be having Sarah on the show.
What's her name?
We were supposed to have her on already over the past couple of days to talk about some of the deadlines that are coming up and stuff, but
Sarah
I think
who?
I dropped the ball. Sarah Sunday is the host of the Karma Cup. She's amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Very good friend of ours. We go to the Karma Cup as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to go this year or not. I have some legal issues in Ontario.
Oh, I understand. Okay, parking
the
tickets.
Toronto police don't like us at Cannabis Culture very much.
Oh, okay.
And so, my lawyers have advised me to stay out of Ontario.
Don't even come to Ontario. Well, okay, well, that's too bad for you. But if you do come, and if somebody does come on Sunday, I'll be speaking there for NORML, which is a thing that I heard of when I was a child. The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws has asked me to deliver a 50-minute keynote speech with question and answer at the end. It's in Toronto. Look it up. I'll be there live explaining this thing, my quick little story and how I got out of it in a little more concise manner than our rambly conversation today. I promise not to forget things. It's been a long day for me here, too. But, come and see. I'm so thrilled and honored to be speaking for NORML Canada. It's almost like a dream come true. I remember 10 years old, I'm thinking about this thing. What does that mean? They can change the laws if they don't like them? I always thought it was cool, and 44 years later, I'm actually going to take a crack at it, speaking for them. They asked me to do it. It's super nice, and I'm thankful to you guys also for having me on the show, and preaching to the converted already. We're all cool up here. We get it. It's a really viable thing, but speak to someone who's kind of on the fence. Find the people that aren't quite sure. They're open-minded. They can't believe it. They think it's weird, but did it work? Those are the people we got to bring in, because the diehards the other way, forget it, man. They're lost, wasting your time. Bring in the middle folks. You've got an aunt, you've got an uncle, you've got a daughter. Somebody needs help with this medical cannabis. Rick Simpson Oil, Phoenix Tears, Green Crush. Check it out. It's all there. We're going to help people.
Yeah, man. We'll have you back again soon, Alan.
Cheers. Have a good time. Don't come here.
Peace. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Right, peace, brother. We'll have you back again. I'm going to give you a shout as soon as possible, and we'll tune in. And I'm going to hit up the episodes. I haven't had the chance to actually go through and listen to all 5 of the episodes available there, but Green Crush
by the
with
time
Alan
you
Park.
do, there were
Peace,
6.
brother.
Peace, man. Have a good one. Cheers, you guys.
There we go. Yeah, that was fun. So, Neil Magnuson, didn't announce you stepping into the picture, but there's Neil.
Snuck in.
He snuck into the picture there. Man, I think Alan's story is pretty crazy. A lot of hope for people with this remedy. Like, it's just such an amazing story to hear. You take this cannabis, little bits of this cannabis, and it has such a strong effect. Now, obviously, we can't say that it's going to work for everybody, but you hear the story so many times over and over and over again, and it really accounts for something. Like, there's...
Well, we've been dealing with this for years and years, right?
Yeah.
We do hear all these stories.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And we've had, I mean, there's been movies, there's been videos, there's been testimonials. There has been a lot of research.
Lots of news stories lately.
A lot of news stories. But I mean, there hasn't been, I don't think the doctors have come far enough, even close. Like they just haven't, like, and as we hear, they're not giving it the fair hearing it needs, really. And I haven't yet seen the group, like Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Where's the Doctors for Marijuana group, the really big one in North America?
They would be so put down by the College of Physicians and Surgeons on behalf of pharmaceutical companies if they did that.
It's hard because they rely on empirical information and things like, even if Chinese herbs, for instance, will have some effect and really work on this many number of people, if you can't narrow it down to an exact dosage level that works on this amount and, do these controlled experiments, then the medical community isn't going to support it in the same way because they can't back it up with empirical science.
Well, the truth is if you do have the empirical evidence and it's going to go against their pharmaceutical products, then they suppress that information.
Yeah, exactly.
You can call me a conspiracy theorist all you want, but really it's more about so-called coincidences that these things happen when it comes to things that hurt their bottom line. And I don't believe it at all. I believe that they sit up in the high towers in those groups and they decide how can we put down this particular substance that's going to take away from our bottom line profits. And I'm sure that they've had those meetings and those discussions for many, many years. Cannabis legalization is going to be extremely harmful to the bottom line profits of pharmaceutical companies, and you can bet they're doing whatever they can to stop that from happening. Conspiracy theory or not, that's what's going on here. Cannabis is medicine. As Alan just said, even if it's just placebo, and all these hundreds and thousands of people think that they're being cured, and so therefore they're being cured just because they think they are, well, that's still medicine. That's still being cured. That's still powerful, even though we know that it's the whole endocannabinoid system and all the vitamins and supplements and all the rest of it that's in cannabis that's actually doing it. It's not just placebo at all.
Yeah, but the doctors don't advise it, though, Neil.
They advise against it.
I advise against that. I wouldn't do that. That thing that saved your life, no. I wouldn't do that.
That's so crazy.
It might hurt you.
Yeah, it might hurt you.
What the fuck? It's mind.
I like what Alan Greenspoon had to say about it.
The guy is going to die. What is worse than that? There's nothing worse. Even if there's some side effect to the cannabis that's not death, as long as it's not death, it's better than death.
It's crazy that doctors don't prescribe the least harmful treatment to any given illness every single time somebody is diagnosed.
Yeah,
how is that not the way it always is?
What's the side effect of cannabis anyways? What is it that he's actually advising against? You might go to sleep. You might be real sleepy for a while if you take that cannabis oil. That's about the worst.
You'll drain your bank
be
account buying munchies or something.
The side effects that
criminal.
you get from most pharmaceuticals are so much more intense than any of the psychoactive physical effects.
As he said, as Alan told us, when he was coming off of some of the drugs they were giving him, it was causing all kinds of serious issues.
Yeah.
Also life-threatening issues.
Yeah.
So no, it's just unbelievable that we're still at this stage. And I was going to say earlier, we're sitting in the Pod TV studio here at 307 West Hastings in Vancouver. Where we're sitting used to be David Malmo Levine's Cannabis Museum. And all around, sitting in here in cabinets on all sides, were cannabis bottles, medicine bottles from 100 years ago. And these are, as Alan was saying, this is something that was being used in medical science for years before it was actually made illegal.
Thousands of years.
Well, of course, thousands, but in modern medical science, in a bottle from Bayer, from we actually have the labels of these companies, and it contains cannabis, and it was used to get rid of things like tumors or swollen things. It's anti-inflammatory. So they've known about the properties of cannabis for a goddamn 100 years or 200 years in medicine.
100 years ago, it was the second most prescribed medicine.
Yeah.
Number one veterinarian medicine that was prescribed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good for everything. And then, no.
And as Carly pointed out, less side effects than anything else on the market. So
it's fucking
criminal. It should be tried first for just about anything that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, when you think about it, even if it is something like, you were saying how if a doctor sees that there is a Chinese herb and so they see so many times it's making a difference, doctors do actually recommend that stuff. Like if you go in and you say, I have insomnia, they're going to say, okay, try getting more exercise. A lot of the time before they go to to a pharmaceutical. So there should be, something when you're saying you should eat healthy if you're worried, if you're feeling this way, or you need to exercise more, you need to get better sleep.
I'm not saying doctors shouldn't do that. I'm saying they should do it, I don't know how much they do that. They might reference exercise, but there's like empirical science that shows that exercise is good for you or whatever.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something like Chinese herbs or cannabis, it's harder to do the type of empirical studies that they want.
Yeah, it's true.
But that doesn't mean that they can't advise it anyways. It's not just, if you don't pay attention to anecdotal studies, you're not paying attention to real science. That's real science. So anecdotal evidence is important, and it weighs heavily on our side in this case. And
especially when it piles up to the point where it is with cannabis.
Right. Yeah.
So much anecdotal evidence.
No, it's insane. And it's beyond. And we've had a medical marijuana program in Canada since 2001. So, it's a medicine that works for people. Like, it's hard to believe that in places like the United States with Jeff Sessions and stuff, we're still arguing. We're still, they want to crack down harder.
It's still Schedule 1.
Schedule 1 there. That which, insane. Of course, in the United States, if something's Schedule 1, that means that it has no beneficial medicinal properties. That's the claim.
It can only hurt you.
Well, what's crazy is that
then why does the U.S. government have a patent on it?
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to know. The U.S. government has a patent on cannabis for its anti-inflammatory properties. Yeah. And that's how long, Neil, do you know how long they've had that for?
Don't know when they got that, but it was a long time ago. Yeah. They've known for a very long time that cannabis is powerful medicine. They've been working very hard to suppress all that information for a long time. We know that. That's what we're up against.
Yeah.
They should be shouting it from the rooftops. Hey, there's something you can grow in your garden that's going to help you with a whole bunch of really bad stuff that can happen to you. But they're not shouting it from the rooftops. They're trying to bury it. So.
Yeah, it's brutal, man.
They tried to bury us, but didn't realize we were seeds, eh?
Love it. Yeah. Well, that was very cool. And it was great that Alan was able to hang out with us for so long, because I really like getting sort of in depth with people.
That was awesome.
As often as possible. And it doesn't always happen that way. So definitely tune into his podcast. I've got it up here. And if you can't remember where it is, just go to the front page of Pod TV. It's in today's show. But Green Crush with Alan Park. What are you dabbing on there, Carly Marley?
I was going to offer you a dab.
You should offer me a dab.
Would you like a dab?
I would love one.
Would you like some Moby Dick or some rosin?
What kind of rosin?
Some Johnny rosin.
Johnny rosin?
Yeah, he left me some rosin. He
sativa?
broke my dabber when he was making his rosin, so that's
dabber?
why we made a commotion. My pretty one.
Aw, Johnny.
So he gave me some dabs. But R.A.P. pretty purple dabber.
Damn. What, I think the Moby probably.
The Moby.
Unless, because I'm just going to go to sleep if it's indica.
I don't think it is. I don't know.
Okay, well, give me the Johnny.
So I don't know.
Give me the Johnny goods then.
Here, you could smell this.
I'm down.
Hey, so there's some other things going on while you still got a little bit of time in your show.
Magnuson. Why don't you tell
Watermelon's
us about
running for city council. That's huge news for our cannabis community.
Wait, has it been announced though?
Yeah, it was in the Georgia Straight today.
Oh, hello there.
Officially announced.
We should have had her on the show.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have her on the show. Can't have her next week on the show because we'll be at the Cup, the High Times Cannabis Cup here on Vancouver Island. But maybe the week after that.
It's ready.
That's cool, Neil.
I think we got 8 weeks to go before the election.
Tell them about Watermelon, Neil.
Well, Watermelon's a great activist from Vancouver here for the last 20 plus years, and she's a businesswoman. She's very well spoken. She's articulate, and she's going to run for city council coming up. October 14th is the election date. So that's huge news for dispensaries because she's going to talk about the horrible restrictions on dispensaries in Vancouver. Huge news for the cannabis community in Vancouver for sure.
Huge.
And we need to get out and support her. So put that on your list. Not very many people usually vote in a civic election, a by-election. So let's do that. Let's be the ones that actually go and vote and get her on council and get some good changes in Vancouver. So yeah, that's
Watermelon
awesome
is fantastic. Yeah. And if you don't remember it's Pot TV's Watermelon.
Yeah.
Watermelon is an alumni of Pot TV. Has had her own show on Pot TV. Always been on my show many times. Had several shows on Pot TV actually, for going back almost to the beginning, pretty much. Man.
Yeah, she's been around since early times of activism here in Vancouver to do with cannabis for sure. So that's really huge news. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. Really exciting news for the community.
And if for those who don't know her through Pod TV, if you go to Wreck Beach, you know her. She's famous for being the weed dealer on Wreck Beach that cruises around.
Free watermelon.
Watermelon. Giving away slices of watermelon.
Yep. And they dropped the charges or withdrew the charges for the Cannabis Day arrest. So all that horrible waste of taxpayer dollars, 30 cops brought in to try to contain me, is not all for naught. Just an absolute waste. I don't get.
How
to
much
have my
money
day
do you
in
think
court.
they spent, Neil?
Oh, I haven't done the math. I don't know how to do the math, but 30 cops on a holiday, all getting double time. And that's just the ones that were involved in tackling me and then surrounding the pile. There was so many other officers there that day that didn't need to be there as well. The prosecution's been on this for 2.5 years.
Yeah. For those watching the show who don't know the whole story, this was at Cannabis Day. You're wearing your Cannabis Day shirt.
2015,
where they didn't like what we had been doing for 20 years before that with our cannabis farmers market, openly selling marijuana, and they got all up in Neil's face, and then they swarmed us with all these cops, tackled Neil, and when we tried to hug power him, they basically attacked all of us, attacked the crowd, threw a bunch of guys in the paddy wagon, but some girls, including Carly Marley, into the paddy wagon. So that was brutal.
It was a horrible
And Neil was the only one.
Traumatic.
Neil was the only one who had charges that actually stuck.
all
Everybody
the
else's
obstruction of justice charges were dropped.
Yeah, and then
They
now
were
they're all
charging me with
gone.
trafficking, even though they had nothing that they seized off of me. And now, of course, I knew they'd never let it get to court. We really wanted to get into court and show those videos and expose them for what they did. We'll try to get in there by suing them now, see if we can go that route. But it was horrible what they did. We were politically targeted, and just the amount of money and the amount of violence that they brought to our event, the amount of money they spent to bring all that violence to our event was horrific. It's traumatic for a lot of people. I'm still traumatized by it. And now they're going to get away with it by just withdrawing the charges.
What a total fraud.
Horrible.
Total fraud. What a waste. Like, I just can't believe it. It's really such a damn waste.
It was a
Imagine how-
surreal event, so out of the ordinary for what we'd been dealing with for 20 years. And, and now
good.
it's
I'm
going to
glad
be
it's
swept
done,
under the
though.
carpet.
Thank God it's done. So that's good.
Yeah, it's a win for sure, but they're just going to
big
be able
win.
to sweep it under the carpet, and hopefully we'll all forget that it happened. And
You were saying you might sue them. What is that all about?
Well, I got differing reports on whether or not I'm going to be able to do that. It's been more than 2 years since the event, but then there was all these delays in court, so there's a chance that I can still go ahead with that. I'm going to find that out in the upcoming week for sure.
Sue them for what?
Wow.
Wasting your time?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be lots of things we can sue them for what they did there that day, or something, because that's just so
Sue them
wrong.
for assault. See, I think there's laws, and I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure there's laws that you can't sue the cops for busting you.
Oh, yes, you can.
You can?
Oh, yeah. If they bust you unfairly, if they abuse their power, they bring too much force, all those things
you could
can
sue
sue them
them
for.
for some sort of
Absolutely, you
abuse.
can, yeah. And I think that they're really susceptible to being sued for what they did there that day. But they are protected by different laws, with time constraints and those kind of things. So we'll just see if we're able to do that or not.
Statutes
But I'm not going to be happy
limitations.
if this just dies and then we never get to officially bring this up anywhere, because what they did was extremely wrong, needs to be made an example of. We need to never have that happen again. We need to make sure that that type of action by our public servants is not tolerated and not going to happen again. So I'm not sure how we do that, but I'm going to try to make sure we can do that if we can.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Well, good work, Neil. And great, and congrats on that. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, it is a win. It is a win. My
Oh, it's a
lawyer's
huge
really
win.
happy.
Well, I mean, it's a win. I know you wanted to go and fight it all.
Yeah, I wanted to have a judge have a look at those videos that we have of what the cops did there that day, because I don't think
Yeah.
any rational person
It'd be an
could ever
embarrassment
think
for
that was
them.
okay. It'd be a huge embarrassment for them.
That's why they had to throw it out. That's why we knew.
I think that's an embarrassment for them too, to throw it out, and I think that's why they waited for over 2 years to do that.
I knew from
Yeah.
the beginning they'd throw it out. We said from day fucking one.
Yes.
I remember being in the courtroom the very first day and being like, this is going to get thrown out.
Yeah, they'll never let this come to
No.
court because it's a huge embarrassment for the
Yeah.
city, for the VPD. Yeah. for sure.
Drag their feet for 2 years. It's hard to believe. Remember that, Neil, that day? We're 2 years on the other side now, buddy. Wow.
Yeah. I still got a rumbling in my stomach, the tension from talking about it and thinking about it. When I watch those videos, it's really upsetting still 2 years later. So
Yeah.
I don't want to just
It's traumatizing. There you go. Sue them. You have PTSD.
We'll do whatever we can do. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Fuckers.
So a couple other things. We got the High Times Legends Valley Music Festival coming up. I know
Yes,
you've
sir.
talked a little bit about that on the show.
Yeah, we talked a little bit just at the front end of the
That's
show.
next weekend, so it's coming really fast. Get your tickets while you still can. Going to be an awesome, awesome event.
Carly
for sure.
Marley's a celebrity judge
Yeah.
at the High Times Cannabis Cup. And Neil, are you a celebrity?
I'm a celebrity judge.
Neil's
yeah.
a celebrity judge, and Neil will also be singing and dancing on stage. He's gonna be,
I don't know if I'm going to subject anybody to dance.
Yeah,
But
no,
I'm going
you
to be doing
should.
I'm going to open the show for them with the opening remarks on O Cannabis, and then do O Cannabis every day at 4:20. I'm also managing and emceeing the speakers stage, so that's going to be awesome as well. I'm really looking forward to that. We got some great speakers coming up, by the way. Danny Danko's going to be there. Dana Larson's going to be there. There's
Yeah.
a whole bunch of really good speakers coming, so that's really awesome.
That's
too.
very cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a great event. Can't wait.
Yep, and they asked me to host the award ceremony.
That's very cool too.
So I'm going to be hosting the
Yeah,
Cannabis
and I
Cup.
know all the Pot TV crew's going to be there. You're going to be doing your show from there next Friday, so that's awesome too.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Give the audience a good taste of what's going on there for sure.
It's very cool to have High Times here in British Columbia on Vancouver Island. I never thought that when they came to Canada they'd be coming to Vancouver Island. I figured that they'd be going to Toronto or
This
someplace.
is the first time they've done their cup in Canada, right?
I know, and that's why it's
That's
so funny
awesome.
that they chose to go to. Well, it's because I think the guys at the Legends Valley Cup did such a great job.
It's the biggest stage, the biggest permanent stage in Canada.
Yeah.
It's a huge, huge event. I'm really not surprised that they would choose that one because I think it is one of the biggest events in Canada.
Yeah,
It's only their second year, but they've got a 10-year contract to continue to do this, and it's only going to grow every year. But already, it's so huge because of the music that they put on, because it's a 3-day camping weekend, and because the cup itself is going to be awesome. There's going to be so many strains to test. They've got a lot of concentrates to test, and all kinds of topicals and edibles and stuff too. So it's going to be really, really, really cool.
Yes, very cool. What's that? Ontario,
Ontario's
you're
not
right, and
chill.
that's part of it. Is
Ontario has
Ontario
no chill.
sucks. They have no chill. You have the Karma Cup there, but they've kind of fucked with the Karma Cup. Last year, they tried to shut it down and went after the landlords of the venue that the Karma Cup was happening at. So
I guess when you think about it, the West Coast is the place for them to have their first cup.
yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, I think so too.
You have a bong here, and you haven't taken a big bong rip on your show in so long. And
I know.
You haven't smoked it yet. and
This
you
is
should
Bunsen.
smoke it. Bunsen? Is that what it's been named now?
Budson, I like Budson.
Is that what you said?
No, it's Bunsen.
Bunsen?
Bunsen.
Bunsen?
Do you know why that reference? No? Who,
No.
Bunsen? No.
I'm glad I saw Alyssa shaking her head in the background, too. So I was like, okay. I'm not
Muppets.
doing it. Oh, yeah.
Bunsen
You
from the
love
Muppets.
I believe it's named
Bunsen
after the
and
guy
Beaker.
that came up with it.
Yeah, the Bunsen is like a Bunsen. Not, I'm talking about Bunsen Honeydew.
It's like a torch.
Bunsen Honeydew is the name of the Muppet.
What is it named after now?
Bunsen
Like, is
honeydew.
it named after honeydew or
His
No.
head looks like
No,
a
it's not.
honeydew melon.
Okay.
You ever notice that? Bunsen Honeydew, yes. Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, I think. But there's Beaker too.
I would have
Beaker's
named
like,
it
beep, beep,
Beaker. This
There
looks more like
there was a beaker. There was a beaker before, but Beaker got broken. This is Bunsen, and there was a beaker. But this is actually not even my bong. This was Anna's bong from way back in the day when Anna used to work here, a former employee, former manager.
giving you
believe.
the lighting.
I think she was the manager of the store at one time. Actually, if I remember correctly.
Oh. Good aim.
Good
That
aim,
was
eh?
impressive.
Bong tokes.
You managed to do it without having to stand up.
So the other thing that's going on with myself is the Cannabis Substitution Project.
Ah, yes, Neil.
And that's been going great for the last 5 months. We've been going to Vandu, the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users main offices on Hastings near Maine. Every Saturday, we have thousands of dollars worth of edibles and joints and caps. There's been a huge amount of people from our culture that have kicked in with donations to allow that to happen every week for the last 5 months.
baby.
Seeds, edibles, topicals, joints, all of it being dispensed in care packs with several edibles and the other things mixed in to well over 150 people every time. But the demand is continuing to outstrip the supply. We have long lineups that are out of sight before we even arrive there every Saturday. We don't get to give everyone in that lineup a care pack, even though they wait for a couple of hours. So if you can help, if you've got some extra flowers, if you're a grower or if you're a dispensary and you've got some caps or whatever else you can donate, we really need more than what we've got. I don't like turning people away every week. With sort of mixed emotions, we're really happy that we managed to get care packs into the hands of 170 people and that they were good 3 or 4 day care packs. But then there's all those people that are still standing there that have been there for a couple hours that don't get anything. So we need more. It's an awesome cause. We are saving lives on the downtown east side and in Vancouver by doing this. It's the right thing to do. So if you're looking for some way to contribute, if you're upset about people dying from the overdose opioid crisis, here's a way that you can help, is the Cannabis Substitution Project. You can find it on Facebook as a group, the Cannabis Substitution Project group, or you can contact me personally and we'll make sure your donations get to the right people. All the people involved in this project, including myself, 100% volunteer. Nobody's taking any money, nobody's taking any cannabis. Everything is going to the people, and we need more than what we've got. So that's my other project that's going on. Please help us if you can.
And if they're interested in helping you, where could they contact you?
Well, through the Cannabis Substitution Project on Facebook or through myself. You can contact me through Facebook, and we'll make sure that the donations get picked up and get handed out for sure.
Awesome.
Yep. That's really awesome that you guys have been doing that. It's such a great example that you're setting.
It had to happen. I mean, cannabis is an effective substitution for many people that are using opioids and street drugs. We learned that at the Herb School, and so we have to do this. So you can't just sit idly by and let people overdose when you know that there's a solution. So, we had to do this, and that's why we're doing it.
Good on you, Neil.
And there's other places that are starting to consider this as well. I know that Weeds, Glass, and Gifts have been setting up pop-up substitution tables in Surrey.
Really?
Amanda Oram is trying to put the same thing together in Nanaimo.
Oh, great.
There's groups in Ottawa and Toronto that are also doing this. So, yeah, it needs to happen everywhere because people are dying everywhere. People are addicted to these opioids everywhere. And the best way to help them is to give them cannabis in all of its different forms free. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Well,
the government needs to help us do this, by the
it.
way. We need funding from the government to do this.
Maybe one day that'll happen.
The demand is so huge.
I think that's not even that far away from now.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I hope that the
I
government.
think if you wrote some sort of a proposal up to somebody, shit. If you
Well, I
can
did
prove
do that
it's working-
with the Vancouver City Council, and they have not responded to me, and that was prior to this year. It was back in 2016 in winter when I did that. So we got nothing from them. I did approach John Horgan. He said, wait till we've got our government in place. Now they have that, so we will be approaching them for funding. The only issue with funding is that they're going to want to control the supply. And we can't allow that to happen. We need to be able to supply whatever we think is right because the government cannot be trusted as to what's right. They're going to want us to use only cannabis coming from their licensed producers, and we've already learned that we can't trust them, and that there's no reason why we can't use craft growers and small suppliers and individuals because there's no danger of anybody harming themselves in any significant way with whatever cannabis that we hand out there. So all of this is a bunch of scare tactics used by probably the corporate agenda to try to prevent people from accessing cannabis everywhere that they want to access it from. Instead, they want you to only use government licensed producers, and this is what we're fighting. This is the battle that we're fighting right now because that system is not going to satisfy so many of the people that want access to cannabis, and we need to have our own supply. I love what Alan had to say about it. Thanks, but get the hell out of our business. Leave it to us. We'll make sure nobody's harmed and people are helped. So we want government funding, but we don't want the government to be able to control what we do in ways that don't allow enough people to get helped in the proper ways that we can do if we're just allowed to do it from whatever source we get. We are doing in-house testing on all of the edibles that we get because you can't eat too much edibles, and we want to know whether they're potent or not.
I can.
But yeah, I can't either.
No,
lots of
I
people
can.
Oh, you can. Yes, well, lots of people can.
Too much edibles? I eat too much edibles. I eat one tiny little piece of edibles and it's too much.
It's true.
Yeah.
I'm done.
But it won't kill you.
No.
No.
It won't
You'll
kill
just learn that next time you're going to have a smaller amount. And
You'll
so
just
we
be
warn
high as
everybody that comes to the
fuck.
table, don't eat all of the edibles that we put in this care pack for you at once, or you probably will be mad at us. You'll be alive to be mad at us, but, still, just dose it properly and it'll be very effective and it'll work well.
Yes.
Don't dose it properly and you might have a couple of uncomfortable nights. So.
Or comfortable. Shit, I sleep right through. Like day, night, all the way through.
Hey, sleep is good, man. Many of the people that we're giving cannabis to have trouble sleeping, and many of them are reporting that now they're sleeping much better. But too much edibles, and it's not a comfortable sleep for a couple of days with your head feeling really thick and not being able to get out of bed and stuff like that. So
I think a lot of the quote side effects of weed are actually your body letting you know what you need to do more often. Like if you think about the
3 days of sleep.
Well, really.
Sometimes it's
I mean,
important.
how often does that happen? That would be from
It's like cleaning
improper
your system
usage,
out.
Well,
right?
Carly,
So that wouldn't be an ideal example. But I mean, if you smoke a joint or indica before bed, you do get a way better sleep. And so sometimes it makes you kind of sleepy or lethargic. Things like the munchies, like how many people have bad eating habits these days or don't eat regularly or skip meals? Like weed, having the munchies actually forces you to do that. How many people, do the simple things that you're supposed to do, like meditate, just take a few minutes to breathe, relax, clear your mind. When you catch yourself drifting off, that's usually, I find that those are the days when my mind is going all over the place before that. So
Carly,
I think that we just, the side effects is actually your body being like, all right, you get
I got to agree with you.
You probably need to drink more water in your day.
That's
so,
it. I agree with you that when you have that 2 or 3 day of not being able to get out of bed, your head feels thick and all of that, the reports almost always is that after that event, people feel much better.
Yeah.
That they actually are much invigorated and energized from where they were before that happened. So, yeah.
Huh. Well, look who joined
So
the
eat
chat.
too much edibles.
Expert Joints is in the chat. I wanted to now we're going to ask him about this on air maybe. That cartoon. Is that the same Robert Moore from World Cannabis that makes those cartoons?
Yeah.
I think it's a different person.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it?
I mean, Craig, no, because he's in one of the cartoons recently. I think it's somebody different too.
Yeah, I think it must be.
I think it's somebody different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody told me once it was the same.
Oh. I'd hate to confuse the two, but
Well,
the
the guy
cartoons
we're
are funny.
talking about has numerous profiles with all versions
I
of
think
his
the
name.
cartoons are cute and funny.
Yeah.
And so whoever's making them, I think
They're
they're
hilarious.
I think they're funny.
They are funny.
Yeah. But no, it's another Rob Moore. It says Expert Joints verified.
Verified. Okay.
Yes. He's from California. He makes the cartoons.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, Neil's gonna get a parking ticket.
I got one last week.
The studio parking
Oh,
is just
So
terrible.
did you.
I did, yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Fuck.
I was going to put money in the meter for you, and then I saw there was a ticket on your window already. So I thought, he's good to park all day there now.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna wrap it up anyways. It's already 6:30 right now, so we've basically done everything we wanted to do on the show today. We have a joint to light though. We can do that. I'm really high as fuck, but it was a good show.
It was a good show. It was
Big
fun.
thanks to this thing is just about to fall over. My phone. Big thanks to all the chatters who are joining us on Facebook and what do they call that one? YouTube.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, everybody out there. That's where Craig X is. John. We got Juan. David Gonzalo.
Chris
Mike,
Bennett was in the
Ollie,
chat.
and then Almighty CBC voter. Bill Cody. Lots of peoples. Pierre.
Hello, Chad.
What is this? Tastes good.
I think it's Moby Dick. I like the Moby Dick. Can I
Is that the stuff that was in my laptop?
No. This is the stuff that was in my purse.
Oh.
But it's probably the same tasty Moby Dick.
Probably. We've been smoking a lot of the dick.
In both
Are you out here there,
extract
Neil?
and
Oh, did you
flower.
want to say anything before you're going? No. Good old Neil.
Peace
Peace
and
and freedom.
freedom.
Neil Magnuson, he needs like a website dedicated completely to Neil. Like Neil.com.
You should make a
Neil.ca.
Facebook page.
And then we can just call you Neil.ca from now on. Like Mark.ca.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, Neil.ca.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, so should we wrap it up? What are you doing on your show on Monday? Stuff?
Neil's gonna come on too. We're gonna
Neil's
go.
gonna be
We're
on the
gonna
show?
go a little bit more in depth into his court case and kind of go over the details of some of
Oh,
that.
that's good. We should have had him as a guest.
Yeah, and we're probably gonna have some grower friends on.
Grower friends.
Mm-hmm.
I hate those guys. Just joking.
Not everyone's confirmed
Just
yet, so it's any
teasing.
days. But we should have so it should
We have
be a
lots of grower friends.
lot of fun.
Oh, you
Have
haven't
fun.
confirmed anybody yet.
Yeah, but we're talking to a few people. We're just
Growers are the
It's only
actually
Friday.
of all
This
the
is
pot
early
community
for me.
people. I think growers are the most laid back of all the pot community people. Like if I had to think of the classifications of different pot community people,
I don't know about
growers
that.
are really.
I would say the glass blowers are. I would say glass.
You think they're more laid back than the?
Okay, if you
Maybe.
get into
I don't know. That's
if
a-
you bring up THC to
I guess
CBD
so.
ratio in a room with two growers there and tell me they're both laid back, like that shit gets heated. You know what I mean? The growers are sometimes the guys who are like they know that their way is the best way, and there's so many guys that do their growing so well. So many people who grow so well. When I say guys, by the way, I use that term for both females and males, so I'm not assuming that the growers are males, but you know,
I just always hung out
I
with
think
really
they can get
laid back
some-
growers.
I've met a lot of laid back growers, but I've also met that are like, no, I'll never smoke butane tabs, or
Oh, there's some
sometimes
snobbery.
they're the hashy.
Yeah, but those
snob
are
guys.
as compared to the extract people.
I would say glass blowers. They're probably the chillest people in the community.
Yeah, you think so? This is a funny competition. Alyssa's laughing over there.
Or maybe our lounge staff.
I know, we're like. I know, but the extract people know they're snobs. That's not even like in question, really.
Well,
Like,
if you're
come
not,
on.
don't
That's
feel
just
like
part
you
of their
have
thing,
a level
isn't it?
of knowledge to be snobby about, you probably shouldn't be using the equipment that is required to make extracts, right? So,
Right.
Snobbiness comes from knowing things.
Right.
Well,
Right. Science, I guess. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
no,
Snobby.
it's
All
such a
those
maze.
snobs.
I tried, but I
trying
just
to be all
knocked it up and
scientific.
everything.
We used to just put it in a pot and stir it around.
I've literally
doing
just
with-
tangled myself in the microphone, just trying to pass it to Alyssa, but I'm just gonna.
Oh, Mike, that's what you're doing. Here. Or was
No.
this going this way? Well, so yes. Anyways, I can't remember what the hell I was talking about. Your show, Monday. What do you got going on?
We're gonna get high.
You
We're
just
gonna
told me-
we're
told
gonna
me all
we're gonna
about it.
get
Was
some.
that-
We're
is
gonna
that all
make
you're
do
doing?
more fresh terpene
Your grower
experiments.
friends. What's
Fresh
that?
terpene
Oh yeah, yeah,
experiments.
yeah. What's your fruit this time?
I don't know yet. I walked past a yellow watermelon in this store though, and I was like,
Those ones are always so. Why is a yellow watermelon to me so boring compared to a pink one?
okay, so but me too, because I think the
I'm not
color
saying
is
you
so
shouldn't
pretty.
do it,
but
but-
I've never tasted a yellow watermelon, so I'm really curious
I think
in
it tastes the
comparison.
same.
Well, I don't.
Like
Like
watermelon.
watermelon. Okay, well. so funny.
Watermelon. Yeah, watermelon is pretty tasty.
Right, but okay, so when you have a green apple and a red apple, they're different flavors, but they can taste kind of similar. When
I
we
think the yellow
smoked
one might be a
dab,
little less flavorful, if I remember correctly. Like it's a little
I
less
just want to
hard hitting.
compare the
It's a little more
terpene
bland,
profiles,
maybe.
because that's what this game is all about.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious. After I walked past them in the store, I was like, "Are you gonna have crazy, delicious, tasty bong rips too,
Yes.
or are you gonna be different,
Yes.
or is it gonna be a completely different flavor?" That now I'm getting the worst munchies thinking about this watermelon. Like, wow, that came out of nowhere.
Watermelon.
That
Speaking of watermelon, she's
So-
running.
Yes.
So you should probably have her on your show too. Somebody should.
I wanted to talk about her, but we hadn't fully. announced everything. It hadn't been fully announced that she was running.
You
yet.
could do
so
a
I was,
watermelon
like,
episode
eating the
where you
bone. Yeah. Now that we know how to make really delicious
You could ask
bone.
Watermelon about the yellow watermelon and what the difference is. I'm sure she knows. She must be a watermelon expert.
She is, because she's talking about picking up some watermelon for an event, and she was like, "Well, someone could." No, I have to pick up the watermelon because I need to pick up that. Yeah.
She knows her.
We're out docket all the ballots.
That watermelon thing is such a great idea too. She's always been giving out watermelon, but it's great it'll work as a politician.
I actually mentioned this on the show though when we were playing with the watermelon, is that it's like, and it was Watermelon who said this, and I love this little bit of information she shared. Watermelons are really like the original vitamin water. They're nature's vitamin water. They're just full of water and hydration and all these amazing vitamins too. So it's great for like anytime you want to. It's the original vitamin water, and nature just does it. I thought that was so cool when she said it. I was like,
okay, so that's the Monday show.
Yes, we're gonna get high and have fun.
Yes.
Talk about weed and stuff. What's going on?
Good. Yeah. Here we go. Here, you smoke that. I can't. It's so dry. I'm gonna start.
You know what that means?
Water.
That means that you're.
Oh.
I think that's what it is. I think the side effects of weed are just your body being like, time to hydrate. Like you don't need an Apple Watch with reminders. You just need to smoke a joint and get cotton mouth.
So good.
And then you'll get the munchies, and then you'll end up like getting up and walking to the fridge, and then you'll do that move your legs thing that it makes you do. It's all just it's supposed to happen.
All right. And if we were to rewind today to Sunday.
What if you were to rewind 2 days?
Well, first I was gonna rewind one day to Sunday.
Oh, and then gonna go through Sunday, Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going backwards like last time. Remember on the last show we jumped around from one show to another.
Were you gonna jump around again? On
backwards.
purpose?
I was gonna go back. Yeah.
Just to challenge yourself.
I was gonna go in backwards order.
Okay. Let's hear it. I'm excited to see how this goes. Somebody start a timer.
Backwards order. Yeah, we'll see if we can do it because Sunday is the Royal Hour with Kush Queen at 2 p.m. Yeah, and I don't know who's gonna be on her show, but if we were to go back in time, we could tell you if we were actually going back in time. I'm really high. And then if you go back another day, look, it's Bossless's show. Yeah, and it's called High Noon at that time. At that noon time.
And everyone in chat should say happy birthday to Bossy because it was her birthday this week.
On Wednesday, I believe. Is that right? Wednesday, and there was a happy birthday singing, happy birthday ambush. Yeah, where there was a song and cake. Yeah, delicious cake. Yes, it was good. I had a piece of cake downstairs eventually. It was quite delicious. It had a bunch of fruit and stuff on top. It was kiwi, peachy kiwi. Yeah, it was good. So yeah, Saturday show. And then Bossless. And you guys film it right here in the studio too. Right there. And then Friday show. Gee, what's that? Then we go to Thursday, but Craig is away. Craig is not around anymore. He's going to be away for a couple weeks. So I think he's...
He will be, though, at the 420 golf tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And I know Coach Queen's going to be there as well. And I believe they're going to be doing some live streaming. So you guys should check that out.
Yes.
I'm sure Craig will post a lot of the details.
Is he in the chat right now? He can let everybody know.
Yeah, you can let everybody know.
Back September 7th for the Karma Cup special.
Cool.
I think. Yeah. Oh, and he says happy birthday, boss.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah, expert. What's the deal with your next appearance? When's the golf tourney? I heard about this golf tournament. Sounds like fun. I think we'll be. Isn't there something going on in Squamish too, or is that the same thing?
I think that is in Squamish.
It's
somewhere else in
yeah.
BC. I know that. I feel like the people who like to camp are going
Kush Queen's going to that squamish
Yeah,
thing.
I feel like the people who don't want to necessarily be as in the elements, then there's another great cannabis event going on. You don't have to go and do the music festival for 3 days.
Craig doesn't want to go camping.
You can go golfing for 3 days.
He doesn't like to go out into the.
There's a few people. I know a few people who are like, I'm not a big camper, but I'm actually going to the golf tournament that weekend. So it works out really well because, like, you know,
it's not for everybody.
There's something for everybody going on this weekend. So should be a fun show.
There you go.
Yeah. All the shows talking about
Yeah, I guess we'll have to figure out how
you
that's...
confuse me with your going back in time because
backwards.
You have flipped my head all around trying to figure out what I'm talking about on my show next.
We're high trying to make it work.
I thought you were going to confuse yourself going backwards.
No, I think I'm doing pretty good so far. I think I got it. I confused you.
You confused me.
Yeah. And I can't... And Craig, also, he should put a link to that cartoon, to the cartoon we were talking about in the YouTube thing there so I can see and tell people what it is. Because we should send people to go watch the cartoon. It's funny. And the other cartoons at that guy, Rob Morris.
You want me to?
No, I want Craig to. He's in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, he knows it because he's in the new video.
Yeah, I said.
Yeah, and it's his voice. They actually, I believe he'd like voice acted it himself.
Really? That's so
It says that it's his voice on the video. Like at the end of the video at the bottom. Yeah. September 7th, Karma Cup special. Yes, live from 420. But when is 420?
It's the same weekend as the Legends Valley.
It is? Okay. It is. Okay, I thought it was.
Cannabis Cup.
All right, we'll have to figure out how we're doing the live stream on that because we'll be doing the
tap in and out.
Yeah, exactly. We can do a little shared broadcast idea.
It'll be an exciting weekend on Pot TV. And that happens. That's for
Squamish, yes. So wait, we're going back in time. Expert Joints is Thursdays and Wednesdays is From Under the Seed Desk Influence. From Under the Influence, again, with Marijuana Man and friends. And his friends are Al the Alchemist and Kush Queen. And Boss Lissa. And some other friends sometimes.
Yeah, I guess friends.
Yeah, that's a good show. That's at 4. And then there's Tuesday, Mr. Freddie Pritchard and the Great Canadian Smoke Show.
Yep.
4 p.m. Talking about all kinds of crazy stuff, all the latest news about the LPs and the cannabis cultural appropriation and how we can fight back. And then there's you again on Monday. Wait, we went all the way. Bam. Woo!
Kush Queen's show is coming from 420.
Kush Queen's
that's
show.
Kush Queen's show is going to be broadcasting from the 420 golf tournament. So that's pretty
good.
Cool.
Yep. That's a good thing to do.
Very neato.
At 2 p.m. on Sunday.
That means
Cushy's show.
Boss Lissa will get a day off on her birthday weekend, right? Or weekend after her birthday weekend. But still, that's good. Yeah, close enough. Yeah.
Oh, Expert. That's why Expert can't go to High Times. Oh, yeah. It's not because he doesn't like to camp. Uh-huh.
All I said is it's a good option for, some people want to be
outdoor.
in a tent. Some people want to be on the
outhouses,
golf course. So there's
outhouses,
an
and there are showers, though. But,
yeah,
but it's outhouses, isn't it?
Yeah, but they were flushing outhouses.
Flushing outhouses? Oh.
They were like those little, they were just like those little.
Oh, yeah, they were. They were actual toilets.
Yeah, they were just like pop-up bathrooms.
Little toilet stalls.
Yeah, I think that they're always there. So they're like a little bit, I think there's some regular plumbing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, in terms of the camping sites, it was pretty sweet.
I thought it was cool.
Personally, I would want somewhere where it's like, I don't know, never mind. That's just in terms of camping. It's like, it's cool. I find it's pretty there's a lot of amenities for a campsite,
I thought it was cool.
I think it's great. I think it's perfect for a festival because you don't have to worry about as much.
We did give away some tickets on the last couple shows. I think those have been mostly worked out with the people who won them. So yeah, if you can, I think you can still get tickets though for the High Times Cannabis Cup at the Legends Valley Music Festival on
on Vancouver Island in Lake Cowichan. That's so cool. I love that High Times is involved now in Lake Cowichan. That's so funny. Because I'm from the island, so Lake Cowichan's like the place that I camp at every summer just for fun, because it's free. And we just go like camp, kick your own campsite out of the bushes. But yeah, it'll be fun to go there again this time, and we'll be broadcasting live from that as well. So lots of fun on Pod TV. Tune in, everybody, all week long. We'll see you soon. I guess that's the end of the show. It's just about 7. Jeez. Just about a 3-hour show today. Are you feeling high enough?
I'm stoned.
Look at my eyes.
Mine too. I'm like fighting to keep them up. I have been for the past
I'm high.
while.
All right. Peace, Pod TV. We love you. Have a good one, and we'll see you very soon.